My card. I direct that the bell be rung for 10 minutes. They always sit down and forget that they have.
Well, as directed by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Bose, that our quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. Of course, this is pursuant to the House Standing Order number 34, that at the commencement of House business, if a quorum of 50 members is not present in the chambers, then the quorum bell will be on for 10 minutes. Of course, this is to give way for the members who are yet to make their way to the chambers to be able to get into the chambers and take their positions. And of course, for the House leadership, especially the whips, to be able to whip members to make their way to the chambers. So in that 10-minute period, we will be seeing members walking into the chambers. The sergeant at arms are on standby, counting the number, and once the number is achieved, then they will be alerting the clerk and the speaker, and the House will be called to order for the commencement of the House business. Remember, today is the day that the House is expected or is set to conclude or wind up on its second session sittings. So we are likely to see that members will be walking in or enable the House achieve the requisite quorum for the House business to kick off, as well as continue and enable the House conclude on the second session on a clean slate. But two bills, as I had indicated earlier on the order of business, will have their publication period reduced from 14 to 3. That is the Affordable Housing Bill, and the Land Laws Amendment Bill, also reduced from 14 days to 1 day. These two bills are also lined up for first reading at the National Assembly floor, and these bills, as well as the procedural motion, will be moved by the leader of the majority party, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. The Affordable Housing Bill, as I had indicated earlier, is that it seeks to provide legal framework for the establishment of the Affordable Housing Fund, access to affordable housing, and in particular give effect to Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution on the right to accessible and adequate housing. Various clauses in this bill contains provisions on the eligibility criteria and application procedure for affordable housing, also contains the financial provisions in respect of the accounts and audits over the fund. Well, those members, of course, getting into the chambers, remember what is underway currently is the quorum bell. That is Honorable Beatrice Elachi and Honorable Njeri Maina walking into the chambers. The Land Laws Amendment number 2 bill, originating from the National Assembly, seeks to make a variety of amendments to laws that relate to the land to enhance efficiency in matters relating to grants and dispositions and compulsory acquisition of land. Now, this bill has outlined a number of legislation that it will be making amendments to the Land Registry Act number 3 of 2012 is one of the legislation or statutes that this bill has proposed amendments to. And the amendment to this bill will be to amend Section 56 to provide that the registrar shall not register a charge where land rent has not been paid. The National Land Commission Act number 5 of 2012 is also another statute within this bill that will be having amendments. And the amendment to this bill is to remove time limits to review all grants and dispositions of public land and to allow continuous receipt of historical land injustice claims to be heard after the year 2026 by upholding the provisions beyond the 10 years stated. The Land Act number 6 of 2012 will also be going through some amendments with regards to this particular bill, and the amendments on this bill will seek to introduce amendments relating to general conditions relating to leases, licenses, and agreements for public land, to introduce new provisions to regulate rent for the several periods and valuation of land for rent. In addition, the bill seeks to amend provisions relating to compulsory acquisition of interest in land. These are just a few of basically the 3 acts or the 3 statutes that this bill, the Land Laws Amendment Bill, will be proposing amendments to, and that is a bill that will be tabled on the floor of the National Assembly chambers this morning. If you are just joining us, is that the Quorum Bell is underway. The Quorum Bell indicates that the House lacks the requisite number of members at the commencement of House business, and at such a point or in such a situation, then the Speaker or the Chair may direct that the bell be rung. This is, of course, to give room to the members to make their way to the chambers, and also the leadership of the House, especially the whips, that is the majority whip, Honorable Sylvanus Osoro, of course, coming from, whipping members who may be within the precincts of Parliament, but yet to make their way to the chambers, to be able to get into the chambers and allow the House attain that requisite quorum for it to commence its business. Once the number is achieved, or the quorum is achieved, at least 50 members in the chambers, then the sergeant at arms, who are counting, of course, or keeping tabs with the number of the members inside the chambers, then will be alerting the clerk and the Speaker that the quorum has been achieved and that the House business can start. Well, as you can see, that is the whip, of course, whipping members to be able to get into the chambers. We are likely to see more members, but
First
once
order.
the number is...
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Honorable members, for efficiency of the House, allow me to reorder the order paper. So we'll go straight to order number 8, then order number 9, and then order number 10. Thereafter, we shall come back to order number 4 and proceed in chronological order thereafter. Thank you.
Order number 8, procedural motion, reduction of publication period of specified bills.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we'd like to move the procedural motion, reduction of publication period of specified bills. That pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the following bills. 1, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, from 14 days to 3 days, and the Land Laws Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 76 of 2023, from 14 days to 1 day. Honorable Speaker, the purpose of seeking this House to approve reduction of the period from 14 days to 3 days is because, as you're aware, we are going on recess. And we would like to publish these bills early so that as we proceed for recess, committees are able to sit down, do public participation, so that as we resume these bills will be ready for tabling in this House and for discussion, and we are able to do the laws that are required to do so. Honorable Speaker, I want to urge this House to look at the importance of this bill, especially the land laws. There are a lot of issues in land that today are stuck because the laws have not been reviewed. And again, Honorable Speaker, the Affording Housing Bill is a very crucial piece of legislation which we must dispose of the quickest, as said by the courts. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like us to pass this procedural motion, and I would request, my friend Wangwe, the former Chief Whip, to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second that motion by the Deputy Leader of Majority. And Honorable Speaker, as well put by him, it's important at times, Honorable Speaker, to look at where we as a Parliament. And looking at the situation where we are today, Honorable Speaker, it calls upon us that we reduce the publication period from 14 to 3, so that we allow the flexibility as provided, as said by the Deputy Leader of Majority. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the following bills. 1, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, from 14 days to 3 days. And secondly, the Land Laws Amendment Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 76 of 2023, from 14 days to 1 day. I can see it's the mood of the House that I should put the question. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the following bills. 1, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, from 14 days to 3 days. And 2, the Land Laws Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 76 of 2023, from 14 days to 1 day. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. What's your point of order, Honorable Ruku?
Madam Speaker, the centrality of our Constitution is public participation. It's extremely important, and it is a provision of the Constitution that public participation is very important. And when we have just passed that the reduction of days, it is my opinion, Madam Speaker, this House is negating this key principle of public participation. Thank you.
I think, Honorable Ruku, you have jumped the gun. Actually, after this, it will go to public participation, and there will be almost 2 months. So I think your fears are unwarranted. So, no, I think he's satisfied now. Thank you. Let's move to the next order.
Order number 9. Order number 9, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution to provide for a framework for access to affordable housing and for connected purposes. Order number 10, the Land Laws Amendment Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 76 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the laws relating to land and for connected purposes. Order number 4, petitions.
honorable member for Jomvu, isn't it? Honorable Badi. Your name reads as Badi on the screen.
Badi Twalib.
Okay. So
That's
right.
my name, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to present the public petition number 82 of 2023 regarding the delay in the completion of Jitoni Rabai Road in Jovuku Ward, Jomvu Sub-County. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Jitoni in Jomvu constituency, draw the attention of the House to the following, Madam Speaker. That one, the Jitoni Rabai Road was launched by the then Deputy President, who is now our current President, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, on March 16, 2018. And it was meant to link the interior parts of Jomvu constituency to Rabai constituency without having to drive to Mazeras. That, Madam Speaker, the road was part of the old Mombasa-Nairobi road and links the interior parts of Jomvu to areas like Mazeras and Rabai, thereby complementing the main Mombasa-Nairobi highway. That, Madam Speaker, out of the 12 kilometers, the contractor made substantial progress and completed construction of the first 9 kilometers on Rabai side, after which the contractor abandoned the site without completing the remaining 3 kilometers on Jomvu side, despite residents demolishing their houses and businesses to pave way for the construction of the said road. Madam Speaker, the remaining section of the road is dilapidated, exposing residents to extremely dusty conditions when it is dry, and impassable due to mud accumulated during rainy weather. Transport costs, Madam Speaker, incurred by residents have tremendously increased due to high maintenance costs on vehicles and motorcycles passed on to users by service providers. Madam Speaker, access to water has been curtailed through destructions of pipes during construction of the road, which cannot be fixed until conclusion of the road construction. This has forced residents to incur exorbitant charges in accessing the basic commodity through purchase of water from water boozers. Madam Speaker, efforts by the petitioners to have the matter addressed by the Kenya Urban Roads Authority under Director General Kinoti have been futile, and that the matter presented in this petition is not pending before any tribunal, court of law, or independent body. Therefore, Madam Speaker, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Public Petitions Committee, 1, compels the Kenya Urban Roads Authority, KURA, to complete construction of the road as per the contractual agreement within the next 6 months. And 2, Madam Speaker, makes any other recommendation or action it deems fit in addressing the plight of the petitioners. And your petitioners will ever pray. Presented by me, Honorable Badi. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, honorable members, I'll give a few people to make comments on the petition. Honorable Rahim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to join my colleague, Honorable Badi, who we serve with in the Transport Committee. And Madam Speaker, the issue of this road, Honorable Badi has raised it variously, and it is not that being members of the Transport Committee, we get more favors than the others. But Madam Speaker, it is a tragedy that roads in this country, I mean, the CS did present yesterday that roads will be done which have not been completed. But we wonder, when are they going to be done, Madam Speaker? Because we've waited for so long. Even in my constituency from 2017, there's a road which has stalled for a few kilometers. The bypass has stalled under Kura. Madam Speaker, we need urgent intervention, and the road in Jomvu should be completed as in the other constituencies, Madam Speaker. So I join my friend and my brother, Honorable Badi, that we should get this road done. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and let the minister do what is needed to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. If you're willing to speak to this, put on the intervention, Honorable Doraso.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this petition by Honorable Badi Twalib of Jomvu. I think if there is an organization that is so corrupt, inept, and so confused in constructing roads in Kenya, and I want to say that without fear of contradiction, is Kura. The chairman of Roads Committee, if he's in the House, should take note. Since 2017 in my constituency, there are 2 roads always constructed by Kura. Nobody knows who is constructing it. The scale of work, there's no involvement of leadership in constructing those roads. We know what Kenya is doing, what Kera is doing. So for that reason, I think what Honorable Twalib has raised here, what we want to know is if public funds have already been utilized. If so, the ethics and anti-corruption must follow those guys, and public money should not be thrown away. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Raso. Member for Navaholo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the petition by Honorable Badi Twalib. And Honorable Speaker, it's a petition in the same path as into what is happening in Navaholo, Honorable Speaker. We have a 45-kilometer road stretching from Lurambi to Navaholo through to Musikoma in Bungoma. 45 kilometers covering 3 constituencies, Honorable Speaker. On 15th December, the year 2015, that is the date when the President of Kenya and then Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta launched the road. To date, Honorable Speaker, it is only 18 kilometers done. What baffles me, Honorable Speaker, is that the money that was paid initially, Honorable Speaker, as the it's not the deposit, it's called mobilization fee, is even more than the amount of kilometers covered, Honorable Speaker. So it's important, Honorable Speaker, as the committee looks into this issue, let it also look into the issue of Gushi contractors, Honorable Speaker, who are just there to receive advanced resources, pocket the money, and leave the road to lie in a very bad state, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's important. Honorable Badi has brought the petition now, and we support it. When it will come on the floor, we'll again support you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Member for Mbere North, I see you're seeking attention for the chair for roads, but I'll give honorable members to comment. The last person would be the chair for Roads and Transport Committee. The next chance will go to the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, going through the petition by Honorable Badi, it leaves a lot of questions and than answers. And I think it's important for the chair and the relevant committee to take up this matter, because this issue of contractors abandoning sites at very critical stage of construction should actually be declared a national challenge, if not a disaster. Because just like the Honorable Badi, Honorable Speaker, the road that leads to my home, and it's similar to this, the road that leads to my home was actually abandoned 2 kilometers to my home. And every time I'm left, I have to keep explaining to people that, you know, the road, the contractor will resume site, will take site, will take charge of site. I mean, but there are no signs. I am also an investor, Honorable Speaker, in Mombasa, and I know this particular road. I know this very particular road and where it's stalled 3 kilometers before completion. But looking at the progress the contractor had made, one would be tempted to think that the guy may have been paid the entire sum, you know, and still abandoned site, or somebody somewhere withheld the amounts that were to be paid to the contractor so that they can be completed. Because really, all the other social amenities that are very important in terms of the connection within that area, you know, have been affected. You really can't connect the sewer line, you can't connect water, all the process, the tunnels that were created for drainage systems have now again been backfilled naturally by natural causes through rains and such. Really, you're not explaining to people. Expectant mothers that are supposed to be taken to hospitals, you know, at some point, you know, between the 9 kilometers now to the home stretch of the 3 kilometers, you can imagine when somebody is in labor pain, what they go through within that, in that particular section. Because again, what I've realized, Honorable Speaker, is that when these contractors leave site, they also stop maintenance of that road. So when it rains, the potholes even become more, and the road becomes more impassable. I think the Honorable Chairman, GK, should explain to us what exactly is happening about this road, because I know it's a road that is really affecting people. In fact, there is an outbreak of airborne diseases in this particular place, Honorable Speaker, because of this particular challenge. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable members. We'll do a maximum of 2 minutes so that as many of you speak. Member for Sigowet, Soin, Honorable Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also comment on the petition by my good friend, the Honorable Twalib Badi. Madam Speaker, the situation on roads in this country is so dire. The CS was here yesterday, and you saw, Madam Speaker, how the rest of us wanted to speak to the CS. We wanted to ask him questions, because unless a strategy is fashioned that ties up funds available to the road network that has to be done, Madam Speaker, we're heading nowhere in this country. We're being blamed as members of parliament by the people we represent, and it is because of responsibilities that are not ours. At the moment, Madam Speaker, there are repair works being done on the road between Sondu and Kapsoit. Me and the Honorable Nelson Koech are being blamed constantly, yet we have no responsibility over the contractor who was given that assignment, Madam Speaker. I ask, Madam Speaker, that during the Kamkunji, which was called by the substantive speaker yesterday, we need something substantive from the CS in charge of transport, Madam Speaker. At the moment, there are heavy rains in the whole country, and the road network is presently dilapidated. Unless something is done, Madam Speaker, the situation is such that people will continue planting bananas on the roads, and they're blaming us for work that is not ours, Madam Speaker. Thank you, and I support the petition.
Thank you. Member for Mandera West, Honorable Haji.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I also stand to support Honorable Talib on this. This is very critical. Mombasa and Jomvu as such is the gateway to Kenya, is the face of Kenya. All international entries through the sea comes through there. And when such a road is not done, actually is neglected, then even somebody who has not come into the rest of Kenya and who will just go back from Mombasa will see Kenya as what he saw in Jomvu. And this is unacceptable. And it's not only Mombasa, actually roads all over the country, all over, wherever you go, is pathetic. It's very pathetic. Recently, major roads like the Garissa, Nairobi Road, like Mombasa, Malindi, Tana River, or Hola Road, all these roads are being swept. There is even the roads that has been completed, the jobs are very shoddy, and roads that are done today, this year, the following year is washed away. This is unacceptable. Roads are supposed to have guarantees of many years, at least 10 years or so. So the corruption level in this ministry is just terrible. Recently we saw that the road resource was distributed to Kenya. all the counties, but 50% of the counties got zero, while some counties got almost all the funds that are available. This is unacceptable, and I support Mr. Badi's petition, and action should be taken. It should be implemented to the latter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Member for Kilifi North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank my brother, Badi, also known as Kijana Mwepesi Di Bior Major, the Member of Parliament for Jomvu, for the work he's doing, because that road is very key to the people of Kilifi. Today, when the main road, when Bogolo Bridge collapsed, traffic towards the north coast stopped because Bogolo Bridge. That road from Jomvu to Rabai, joining Kaloleni, coming to Mavueni, going to Malindi, is a very key road for the region. It links Kilifi and Mombasa. And Mombasa, if we will not have another outlet from Mombasa, we will only continue to use Nyali Bridge. One day when we have a situation at Nyali Bridge and that bridge cannot allow vehicle to pass, Mombasa will be landlocked. The only way out is to have that road. That road is key. I know I have spoken to the contractor and there are issues. The ministry is not paying. The contractor has been there, and actually the road was relaunched, but then the graders and everything else were removed. So I think we need to stop PR. We need to ensure that that road is done, and it is done properly for the benefit of the people of Kilifi, the people of Mombasa, and the people of Kenya. That road, I want to stand with you, my brother, Di Mabior, because you care for your people of Mombasa and you care for the people of Kilifi. And I want this government to also show that care. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Kericho, Honorable Beatrice Keme.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the petitioner for what is brought forth, and for real, we have issues with the roads. And the CS was here yesterday. Many of us didn't get the opportunity to air our issues, but today I want to join my colleagues who have spoken about these roads. I come from Kericho County, and Honorable Speaker, many times when we look in the social media, people ask what members of parliament are doing to make sure that the roads are done. And especially during this rainy season, roads are very bad. And as Mheshimiwa Justice Keme has put it correctly, the road from Kapsoi to Sondu, for the last, I think over 10 years, it has been a problem. And as much as he's saying is him and Mheshimiwa Nelson are being asked, people in the crowd do not know who is who. I'm also being asked every day, whenever we go for functions, I'm asked about that road among many other roads across the county. So it is very important, Honorable Speaker, that the government and especially the ministry fast-track issues to do with these roads. Children going to schools are affected. Mothers in labor and even the elderly are affected. In these roads, Honorable Speaker, one thing that is clear, the people have even thought of going by border than the vehicles. So I would really ask that we fast track on the same. There's also this road, Honorable Speaker, in Syokimau, that is community road, which has stalled for 5 years. I stayed there, and members of the public come to me, my neighbors come to me, knowing that I'm a member of parliament. What have I done about it? So I really ask that the roads that have stolen, the contractors that have been given the responsibility and the work to do, let them do it and do it very well. I support the petition. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Njedi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also arise to support this petition. And Madam Speaker, where I sit, sometimes I wonder whether what's happening is maybe to paint the government negative by specific officers. Because I recall also in my constituency, there was a road that money had been allocated But when I kept on following about it, I was told the contractor is the one who is not working. But further inquiry on this, I found that it was Kera Road. I found that Kera had not paid this particular person because of some taxes payment. But you see, what was on the ground was that the president had been around, launched the road, and the road is not ongoing. So the whole blame comes to the government, comes, for example, to the president who launched, when actually the nitty-gritties on the ground is by the respective entities that don't perform their work as expected. Like, for example, asking this contractor to pay the money to the government taxes as required, so as to be paid the money to continue with construction of the road. Madam Speaker, what's also very interesting, in Kakamega County, there's a road that now does not require treasury money. This is a World Bank road. This road has kind of stalled, is not completed. I also raised even the same question to the minister about it. So no one is talking about that, and also it paints the government very negative, when indeed there is money for it, actually from the World Bank. So, Madam Speaker, I would support Mheshimiwa particularly for his complaint, because this is affecting most of us for the roads that have not been completed. And for those that have not been completed, Madam Speaker, you find that when they have stalled, the roads normally have huge potholes, so that some of them, they are now acting as rivers on our roads, to the point that borders all over the country, they are demonstrating with banana seedlings, banana stems, Madam Speaker, demonstrating against MPs and even the President and the government. Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Nataka nijiunge na wabunge wengine kuchangia hili jambo la hii barabara ya Jitoni Rabai huko Jomvu Kuu Ward, Jomvu Sub-County ama constituency ya Jomvu. Na hii barabara, Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naielewa sababu inashikanisha Jomvu na Kilifi. Na nilikuwa pamoja na aliyekuwa naibu wa rais ambaye ni rais wa sasa, Rais William Ruto akiwa naibu wa rais, alipoenda kuanzisha hii barabara mwaka wa 2018. Na ni jambo la kushangaza Mheshimiwa Spika ya kuwa barabara iliyoanzishwa mwezi wa 3 mwaka wa 2018 mpaka wa leo haijakamilika. Na ni vizuri watu wa Jomvu na watu wa Kilifi waelewe, sababu hii ni baadhi ya barabara nyingi nchini yetu ambazo zilisimamishwa maksudi, zikasimamishwa sababu zilianzishwa na aliyekuwa naibu wa rais ambaye sasa ni rais. Na serikali iliyokuwa ilizisimamisha ikifikiria inamuondolea umaarufu naibu wa rais sababu ya siasa duni. Na hizi siasa duni ndizo zimewaweka watu wa Jomvu, watu wa Kilifi na Wakenya wengine. Hata kwangu Kilifi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwangu Kikuyu, sio Kilifi.
Medhani ulihama Mheshimiwa.
Nasikia Mheshimiwa Nelson Koech akisema labda niko na nyumba nyingine Kilifi. Sina nyumba Kilifi. Nilikuwa nasema hata kwangu Kikuyu barabara nyingi zilisimamishwa sababu zilikuwa zimeanzishwa na naibu wa rais wakati huo, na wale walikuwa na hatamu ya uongozi walikuwa wanataka atiwamzimie umaarufu aliyekuwa naibu wa rais kwa kusimamisha barabara na miradi ya maendeleo ambayo manufaa ni kwa Wakenya wa kawaida. Nataka niseme serikali ya leo sasa ambayo inaongozwa na Rais William Ruto imechukua hizi miradi zote ili hakikishe zinaendelea, na rais juzi ametembea kote duniani. Ametembea nchi ya Uchina kuhakikisha ya kuwa hata kandarasi nyingi ambazo ziko na makontrakta kutoka nchi ya Uchina tunapata fedha za kuweza kuendeleza hizo kandarasi. Kandarasi ambazo pia zinaendeshwa na Wakenya, contractors wa Kenya. Pia rais ametafuta pesa. Juzi alipokuwa nchi ya Ufaransa, ulisikia IMF na banki ya dunia, World Bank, wakitangaza ya kuwa tutapata msaada wa fedha za kimaendeleo $12 bilioni ambazo zitasaidia kuhakikisha ya kuwa watu wa Jomvu watu wa Jitoni Rabai kwenda Kilifi wamepata hii barabara kukamilishwa. Na nataka niwaulize wale ambao wako kwa wizara ya miundo msingi na barabara, na waziri alikuwa hapa jana, Mheshimiwa Spika, unakumbuka akituambia ya kuwa shida imekuwa kuanzisha barabara mpya, lakini barabara kama hii iliyositishwa maksudi sababu ya siasa duni ni lazima ikamilishwe. Na nimshukuru kiongozi anayejiita kiongozi mwepesi, kijana mwepesi, lakini anajiita mwepesi lakini mzito kwa maneno. Mzito kwa maneno ya kuwatetea watu wa Jomvu wapate maendeleo, na hiyo ndio sababu alichaguliwa na watu wa Jomvu. Na najua alipitia mangumu serikali iliyopita, sababu alikuwa anaonekana hata kwa chama alichosimama nacho ya kuwa yeye anaegemea sana kwa upande wa Rais William Ruto. Nataka nikuambie mtu wa Jomvu, endelea kusimama na kumuunga Rais William Ruto ambaye atakukamilishia hii miradi ya maendeleo Jomvu na Kenya nzima. Na nikupongeze kijana mwepesi, na uendelee kuwa mzito wa maneno, mzito wa maendeleo, mzito wa barabara kuhakikisha zimekamilishwa. Hiyo ndio kazi watu wa Jomvu waliokupea. Pongezi na kongole kwa hii kazi ya kuleta hii petition, sababu hiyo ndio kazi uliochaguliwa. Na usitishwe na mtu yeyote. Wale ambao jana nilisikia wakisema eti fedha, tutoe fedha za maendeleo. Wanasema tutoe fedha za maendeleo za barabara, kukamilisha barabara kama hii, zipelekwe kwa political parties fund. Na wanataka pesa zipelekwe kwa kusimamia vyama vya kisiasa, sababu huko ndio wanamopata kitu cha kula. Na hii uporaji, Mheshimiwa Spika, ya uporaji ya fedha za vyama vya kisiasa lazima ukome. Tunataka fedha zisiende kwa vyama vya siasa za kupiga siasa, ziende kwa miundo msingi na kwa miradi kama hii ambayo ilikomeshwa sababu ya siasa duni za hizo vyama. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante. Kutufungia hapa ni Mheshimiwa Wandia ambaye pia ni mwenyekiti wa kamati inayoshughulika mambo ya barabara na usafirishaji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Pia mimi hata naunga mkono hii mswada ya Mheshimiwa Bandi ambaye ni member wa committee ya roads, na Mheshimiwa chupavu kabisa na anaelewa kazi yake vizuri kabisa. Honorable Badi, nataka kukuhakikishia wewe ukiwa member wa committee ya barabara, tutaunga mkono hii petition yako, na tutahakikisha hizi kilomita 3 zimebaki tumesukuma wenye wana implement, na nafikiria hii ni kura ndio wamalize hizo kilomita 3, kwa sababu kama wamefanya kilomita 12, 9 out of 12, 3 tunaweza sukuma kupitia funds zenye ziko ndio wamalizie hii murandi. So Bwana Spika, hii si jambo lenye constituency ya Mbadi peke yake. Iko kila constituency kwa hii nchi. Hata nikikuuliza Bwana Spika, kama kuna barabara imekwama kwako, utaniambia kuna 1, 2 ama 3. Hata kwangu ukiniuliza, niko na barabara ilianzishwa, ilikuwa contracted before niingie bunge, na niko tamu ya pili, na imekwama. Inatoka mahali inaitwa Baricho, inaenda Getuya, inaenda mahali inaitwa Kagumo, na imekwama. So hili ni janga tunaface sisi wote wa bunge, na tuko kwa hii hali kwa sababu ya upungufu wa budget wa pesa. Mara mingi tunapitisha budget hapa, lakini inabidi turudi tena kukata hiyo budget, kama tulivyofanya juzi kwa barabara, tukakata 30 billion, karibu 30 billion ndio tuweze kutengeneza budget. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, naunga mkono kabisa. Na Bwana Spika, if you allow me to switch, I know
Order.
Sawa,
Standing orders do not allow.
asante, wacha ning'ang'ane. So, Bwana Spika, jana tulikuwa na CS. Unajua wakati badi yako kwa komiti huwa tunamwambia tuzungumzie Kiswahili kwa sababu ako na Kiswahili mzuri sana.
Chairman, order chairman.
So
Sema CS kwa Kizungu. Kwa Kiswahili.
Waziri.
Kwa Kiswahili.
So, waziri. So, nasema Bwana Badi akiwa kwa komiti huwa tunamwambia tuzungumzie Swahili kwa sababu ako na Kiswahili mzuri sana. So, jana waziri alikuwa hapa. Na alikuwa hapa kuzungumzia mambo ya budget. Na mimi nilijirefrain, niliacha kuongea mambo ya hiyo mswada kwa sababu nilikuwa naona haikuwa inafaa kumwalika waziri aongee juu ya budget, na budget ni kazi ya hii nyumba. Budget, kutengeneza budget ni function ama ni kazi ya National Assembly, lakini siyo ya executive. Tukiita waziri akuje hapa atuambie kwa nini budget inawekwa hapa na sio hapa, na ni kazi yetu, tuna handover, tunapeana kazi yetu yenye tunatakiwa kuwa tunafanya ya kutengeneza budget. Na nikaangalia mjumbe mwenye alialika ama aliuliza hiyo swali ni mjumbe wa kiwango ya juu na ni mjumbe anaelewa mambo ya bunge. Haikuwa inafaa kuita waziri azungumzie kazi yetu. Pia haikuwa inafaa kukubalia waziri oversight hii nyumba, kwa kusema vile tumefanya na vile hatujafanya na vile tunatakiwa kufanya vizuri na vile hatujafanya vizuri. Kazi ya oversight ni kazi ya National Assembly, si kazi ya executive. Kwa hivyo wakati tunawaalika mawaziri hapa, wacha tuwaalike waongee mambo ya implementation ya budget yenye tumepitisha, lakini sio mambo ya kutengeneza bajeti, na hiyo bajeti ni yetu.
Kiongozi ya wale wengi, ni nini hoja yako ya nidhamu?
Hoja yangu ya nidhamu, mwenyekiti wa kamati ya miundo msingi na barabara, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama umemsikiza, anadai ya kuwa waziri hakuwa na haki ya kuja kusema yale aliyokuja kusema jana. Ilhali anajua waziri hakujileta hapa. Waziri aliagizwa aje ajibu swali lililoulizwa na mbunge wa Kathiani, Mheshimiwa Robert Mbui, na ni kufuatilia utaratibu wa kanuni zetu za bunge ya kuwa mawaziri lazima wakiitwa bunge kujibu maswali ama kusema mambo ambayo yanahusiana na wizara zao waje wajibu. Na najua Mheshimiwa Spika kuna maswala tata aliyogusia, lakini ni haki yake akijibu maswali. Kwa hivyo naona Mheshimiwa GK George Kariuki, mwenyekiti wetu wa kamati ya miundo msingi na barabara, amekosea kidogo kufuatia kanuni zetu ya kuwa waziri hafai kuja kujibu yale, sababu waziri ni sisi kama bunge tuliomuita, na waziri yeyote mwingine tusiweke ilani ya kuwa kuna mawaziri ambao wanafaa kuja, kuna wengine wanaokuja, ama tuwawekee vikwazo yale ambayo wanafaa kusema wakijibu maswali. Lazima waje hapa na wajibu maswali. Uongee Kiswahili, Kaluma.
Bwana Mheshimiwa Kaluma, mkuu ya wale wengi alikuwa amesimama kwa nidhamu. Huwezi kusema nidhamu kwa nidhamu. Kama amesimama kwa nidhamu utangoje. Endelea Mheshimiwa. What's your point of order now? What's your point of order? No, he's on a point of order.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm standing to raise a concern about the manner in which, particularly the majority of leader is abusing the idea of points of orders.
The idea of?
Standing on a point of order. Yes. He stands on a point of order, but he goes arguing and debating instead of telling the House what is out of order and what legal provision or standing order provision, like what he has just done. He's debating, taking the time of other members, and it is not something he's doing for the first time.
I
wanted to request, Honorable Speaker, that the majority leader be guided, that he cannot be debating each and every time other members are debating in the pretext of points of order. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Proceed.
Asante, Bwana Speaker. Nafikiria majority leader badala ya kunikosoa mambo ya nidhamu ni inform, angenielezea vile alikuwa anaelezea, lakini sioni kama nilikuwa nasema si kabine ya waziri asikuje kwa nyumba. Nilikuwa nasema hatungemualika aseme mambo ya budget, kutengeneza budget, tungemualika aongee mambo ya kuimplement budget, lakini si kutengeneza budget. Nafikiria hapo ndio majority leader hakuelewa vizuri. So nilikuwa namalizia, lakini nilikuwa nataka kuongezea hata ile pesa bwana mheshimiwa wa Kadhiani alikuwa anaongea juu yake hii ya RMLF. Juzi tulibadilisha sheria kama bunge na tukasema lazima agencies zote za barabara kuleta mipangilio ya ama program zao hapa kwa bunge. Tunakubaliana ya kwamba zimeangalia nchi yote na sio pande moja. So hiyo tumefanya ndio kwa sababu kutengeneza ama kugawa pesa za umma ni kazi ya bunge, sio kazi ya kufanyiwa kwa ofisi. Bwana Speaker, nataka kumuelezea Bwana Badi ya kwamba tutamuunga mkono tukielekea mambo ya kama ni fuel levy ama ni budget, main budget, tutamuunga mkono ndio hiyo barabara ikamilike, kwa sababu ni barabara muhimu sana kwa watu wa Jomvu na watu wa Kilifi na watu wa Kenya. Asante sana Bwana Speaker. Thank you.
What are you on, Honorable MP for Kamukunji? Are you on a point of order? Proceed. What's your point of order, MP for Kamukunji? Please give him the mic.
Asante sana Bwana Speaker. Nashukuru na nimesimama kumunga mkono ndugu yangu Badi Twali, mbunge wa Jomvu. Nidhamu. Mheshimiwa, hiyo tumepita. Hoja hiyo imekamilishwa. Mwenyekiti akizungumza hiyo ndio mwisho. Kwa hivyo tuko kwa order number 5. Tuko kwa order
order number 5, papers.
Papers. Kiongozi ya ule wengi, endelea.
Asante sana Bwana Speaker. Bwana Speaker, nafurahi na kwa heshima ningependa kuwekelea makaratasi haya kuwasilisha makaratasi haya kwa meza ya bunge leo Alhamisi tarehe 7 mwezi wa 12 mwaka huu wa 23, wakati huu wa kikao cha asubuhi. Now I have to move to English. Now, Honorable Speaker.
Order. The rules are very clear. You start your presentations in English, in Swahili, you'll have to do it in Swahili. If you do it if you do it in English, you start, you end in English.
Asante. Sasa ninawasilisha ripoti ya mhasibu mkuu na hesabu za kampuni yafuatayo ya kiserikali. Mwanzo,
shirika, si kampuni.
Shirika.
Endelea.
Mwanambeyu Girls Secondary School. Mombasa Secondary School for the Physically Handicapped.
Shule ya upili ya Mombasa.
Okay, haya. Shule ya upili ya Mwanambeyu ya wasichana. Shule ya upili ya wanafunzi walemavu, shule ya upili ya Barani, shule ya upili ya Dori ya wasichana, shule ya upili ya Elijah Mzae, shule ya upili ya wasichana wa Kakoneni, shule ya upili ya wasichana ya Mtongwe, shule ya upili ya Mwakitawa, shule ya upili ya Chavia, shule ya upili ya Jilore, shule ya upili ya Kipsangui ya wavulana, shule ya Mseto ya Masosa, shule ya upili ya PCA Karai, shule ya upili ya Ngethu, shule ya upili ya Jack Mwashimba, shule ya upili ya Funju, na ripoti ya mhasibu mkuu wa serikali kuhusu ripoti maalum ya uhasibu ya bajeti ya supplementary nyongeza ya ziada kuhusu pesa zilizotolewa kupitia kupitia kifungu cha 223 ya katiba ya Kenya kulingana na mwaka wa kifedha wa 2012 na 2013 mpaka 2022 mpaka 2023. Ya 14, ripoti ya mwaka ya serikali ya bajeti ya utekelezaji wa bajeti na ripoti ya mwaka wa 22-23 kutoka kwa afisi ya mkaguzi wa bajeti. Controller.
Endelea.
Bwana Spika, ningekuomba, unajua hii ripoti ni ndefu na imeandikwa kwa lugha ya Kiingereza. Kufikia pale 19 kwa ruhusa yako maalum, ni kuombe kwamba niendelee.
Endelea, nimekupa ruhusa.
Ili tufanye haraka.
Endelea.
Asante sana, nashukuru. 19, annual report and financial statements of Laikipia University for the financial statement for the year ended 30th June from the Office of the Vice Chancellor. Report of the Pest Control Products Board for the financial year ended 30th June 2022 from the Chief Executive Officer, Pest Control Products Board. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023 and the certificates therein in respect of 1, 220 kVA and 132 kVA transmission lines and substation, Exim Bank of India funded project, Kenya Electricity Transmission Company Limited. Kenya Citizens and Foreign Nationals Management Services, Mwea Irrigation Development Project Loan Agreement number KEP 27, National Irrigation Authority, National Action Plan on Artisanal Small Scale Gold Mining Project number AFR, NAP, ASGM Project C 10 2016, Minister of Environment and Forestry. Nairobi Inclusive Sanitation Improvement Project, grant number 5600-155-05153, Athi Water Works Development Agency. Support to water and sanitation services in peri-urban area, loan number BMZ 2013-6543.6, Athi Water Works Development Agency. Nairobi Water Distribution Network Project, credit BMZ number 2020.82.527 KV 26833, Athi Water Works Development Agency. Safe Roads Usalama Barabarani Program, EU grant number KE FED 037778, National Transport and Safety Authority. Nairobi Water and Sanitation Project, credit number CKE 11351H, Athi Water Works Development Agency. Eastern Africa Regional Transport Trade and Development Facilitation Project, IDA credit number 5638, Information and Communication Technology Authority. Mombasa Port Area Road Development Project, loan number KEP29 and KEP32, Kenya National Highways Authority. Nairobi Western Bypass Project, Kenya National Highways Authority. Strengthening drought resilience for smallholder farmers and pastoralists in the IGAD region, project number 03, DRESS EA 070 OSSKE 20, Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Africa Center of Excellence in Sustainable Use of Insects as Food and Feeds Project IDA credit number 5798 KE, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, Lake Victoria Water Supply and Sanitation Program Phase 2, project number PZ1EAO -004 ADF grant number 210015501997, Lake Victoria Southwest Water Works Development Authority, Water Sector Development Program, Lake Victoria South Kericho, Kisii, Nyamira, and Litien, loan number BMZ 2010-65-861, and grant number BMZ 2010-70-457, Lake Victoria South Water Works Development Agency, Kisii Water Supply, Kisii Water Supply and Sanitation Project, ORI 011, KE 21, Lake Victoria South Water Works Development Agency, Rural Electrification in 5 Region Project, CR credit number 11597 KE, number 1407 PKE, Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, Kenya Cereal Enhancement Program, Climate Resilient Agricultural Livelihoods Window, KCEP, CRAL, EU grant number 200000623, grant number 200001522, grant number 20000003993, grant number 20000011122, and IFAD loan number 200000121, State Department of Credit Development, East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project, East Strip IDL loan credit number 6334-KE-Minister of Education, State Department for Technical, Vocational Education and Training, increased enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms by all in Kenya project number KEN 2062, KEN 190011, KNCHR, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Supporting agricultural input and output marketing policy regulatory framework to improve the enabling business environment for agriculture in Kenya, AGRA grant number 2018 KE005, State Department for Crop Development, multinational Lake Victoria Maritime Communications and Transport, MLVMCT project, Kenya Maritime Authority, Agricultural Sector Development Support Program 2, CEDA grant number 511101019, State Department for Crop Development, Financial Sector Support Project, IDA credit number 56270, KE, the National Treasury, Africa Center of Excellence in Sustainable Use of Insects as Food and Feeds Project, IDA credit number 5798 KE, Jaramogi Oginga University of Science and Technology, Lake Victoria Water Supply and Sanitation Program Phase 2, project number PZ1EAO004, ADF grant number 210015501997, Lake Victoria Southwest Works. And finally, Honorable Speaker, Menengai Geothermal Project Agreement number CKE 1038.01K, Geothermal Development Company Limited. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay. Thank you very much.
Next, before I move to the next order, I want to recognize the presence in the public gallery of students from, or pupils from Soin Primary School in Moiben. The boys and girls who are here are coming to see how the legislative leadership of this country is transacting business. For sure, they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow, and it's a good thing that they're here. I'm going to give this opportunity to the Member of Parliament for Moiben to say a few words of encouragement to the young boys and girls who are in the public gallery. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to welcome students from my constituency, so in primary. Mr. Speaker, these are the students who just finished the KCPE examinations, and they passed exemplary well, and I thought it was important to give them an opportunity to come to Parliament to see where laws are made, and it will help them improve their decisions on what careers they want to take in future. Welcome, karibuni sana. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Let me have. I have 2 statements here for today. Huh? Yeah, 2 responses, indeed, yes. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise under standing order number 35 to inform you that the House does not have a quorum.
The House does not have a quorum. Indeed, you are right.
Thank you.
The House does not have a quorum, and we cannot transact business without quorum. Can you ring the Sergeant at Arms, please ring the quorum bell. Order, Honorable Atandi, under the rules, if there's no quorum, only the whips are allowed to go out. No member of parliament is allowed to go out. To leave the chamber. You can't leave the chamber. You have to stay within the chamber.
Well, the House again has lacked the requisite quorum. The quorum bell is now underway. Remember, the House had attained its requisite quorum of at least 50 members inside the chambers at the commencement of the House business. And the Deputy Leader of the Majority Party, Honorable Owen Abaya, took the floor and read out the procedural motion on the 2 bills whose publication period has been resolved to be reduced from 14 to 3 days and 14 days to 1 day. These 2 bills include the Affordable Housing Bill and the Land Laws Amendment Bill. And these 2 bills, the House resolved to have its publication period or their publication period reduced to the number of days as requested by the leadership of the House. At the conclusion of that particular procedural motion, members embarked on the petition section, and the petition by the Honorable Member for Jomvu, Honorable Badi Twalib, was presented on the floor of the House. This is on behalf of the residents of Jomvu constituencies, and this was with regards to the delay in the completion of Jitoni Rabai Road in Jomvu Ku Ward, Jomvu Sub-County. This is in Mombasa County. And in this particular petition, members had the opportunity or were given time, each taking at least 2 minutes to participate on this particular petition with regards to the construction or completion of that particular road. And it was a petition that saw the contribution of many members taking part in this particular motion. Of course, it is an issue that has been seen to be affecting most areas. We saw the chairperson of transport indicating that it is an issue, or rather transport committee indicating that it is an issue that is being faced by many residents in different areas, and thereby the public petitions committee should be taking keen interest on this particular petition and ensure that whatever will be deliberated with regards to this particular issue covers the main issues that affect most parts or different parts of the country that have issues with roads or incomplete roads and other infrastructure that fall within that particular department or ministry. And this was the petition that was tabled by, or rather presented by, the Jomvu Member of Parliament, Honorable Badi Twalib. If you are just joining us, is that the quorum bell is underway. In the middle of the House business, the House lacked the requisite quorum. And pursuant to House Standing Order number 34, if the House does not have enough quorum, then the quorum bell can be rung for 10 minutes. Of course, this is to alert the members who may have walked out of the chamber and are within the precincts of Parliament to be able to make their way back to the chamber to enable the House achieve the required number of members inside the chamber for the business to continue. And what we'll be seeing is that members, we will be working in. Of course, the leadership will also be working on whipping the members who are not in the chambers to be able to make their way inside. As you can see, those are members, of course, getting into the chambers. And in a few minutes, we believe that the number will be achieved. The Sergeant at Arms, of course, will alert the Speaker or the Chair that the quorum has been achieved and that the House can be called back to order, and the business of the House will be continuing. The members of the National Assembly this morning are expected to resume on the debate on the statute law, miscellaneous amendments, number 2, a bill originating from the National Assembly. It is a bill that is at its second reading stage, a bill by the Leader of the Majority Party, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, and debate on this particular bill already kicked off extensively on the floor of the House, and this will be a resumption of that debate that was interrupted on the 6th of December during the afternoon sitting when the members were debating this particular bill. This is a bill that seeks to make various amendments to various statutes or legislation. It is in keeping with the practice of making various amendments which do not merit to the publication of separate bills into one bill. Some of the legislation or the statutes that will be going through some amendments include the Children's Act 2022, and the amendment will be seeking to remove the provisions of, or rather the provisions which prohibit the court from granting a sole male applicant adoption of a child. The amendment of this act will be on number 29 of 2022. This is the Children's Act 2022, and an amendment will be made on number 29 of 2022 on that act. That is to remove the provisions which prohibit the court from granting a sole male applicant adoption of a child. The Copyright Act 2001 will also be going through some amendments, and this amendment will be seeking to make provisions for equitable remuneration of performers and of performers and producers of sound recordings, and expand the responsibilities of collective management organizations towards the authors and performers. Well, let me hand you over back to this live proceeding.
Order. Honorable Osoro, can you take your seat? The House has quorum, the requisite quorum. Order. Order, honorable members. We have statements and we need the responses to statements and statements themselves. The departmental chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security, the Honorable Gabriel Tongoyo. Do you have the response?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Speaker.
Can you, to jog the memory of the members of parliament, do you have the statement also?
So, Mr. Speaker, it is a statement regards to the drowning of...
the tragic drowning of the residents, of two residents of Sigowet, Soin.
Yes.
Okay, now give us the response.
So, Mr. Speaker, actually,
Order.
The member that we have been consulting with is the member who actually did us the statement.
Yes.
And I'm happy to report that to this end, one body has been already been retrieved. The other one is the search is ongoing. And the ministry has reached the county government to help also in the issue of divers, to continue helping the family to retrieve the body of the beloved one. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, it has been established that that particular area, crossing point, Mr. Speaker, that area lost about 20 lives, spread over a period of about 15 years. And I think it is really, what is so important is to look for a lasting solution to prevent further loss of life. And it's an issue that it is a cross-cutting issue, Mr. Speaker, because even it can be confirmed by the colleague, member of parliament here, that it has been an on and off. Wherever it rains, people will attempt to cross and they get drawn. So the ministry is collaborating with the Ministry of Roads to look whether it can able to provide a footbridge to help people to enable them to cross to the other side without drowning. So it is an issue that should be a collaborated issue between our ministry and the Ministry of Roads.
Honorable members, the Honorable Chair of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security will be heard in silence. Order. Order. Order, honorable members. The honorable member from Mandera, can you take your seat? Honorable members, please listen to what the chair has to say on this statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I've just said that we are glad to report that one body has been retrieved already. The search for the other body is ongoing. And the county commissioner and the office of Ngao are in collaboration with the county government to help look for the divers to continue looking for the other body. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, looking for a lasting solution, the more ideal is to provide a footbridge so that it can able to help the resident cross without the risk of drowning in the future. And it's an issue that calls for a collaboration between the ministries, including the Ministry of Road, which is responsible for the provision of such facilities, like a bridge or a footbridge. So we had actually talked with a concerned member of parliament, and even some colleagues here from the same county, so that they can able to see the means that such a facility, a crossing bridge, will be provided to prevent further drowning, Mr. Speaker. So that is what I have to say, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kemei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the chair for that response. But Honorable Speaker, I had 3 concerns, and I want to say that the third concern has not been addressed. That is, what plans are in place to address compensation for the families of the victims? So, Chair, that has not been addressed. And then when we talk of comprehensive measures, it's just mentioned one of them, to have the food bridge or bridges, because it is not one place. That is from Sigawet Soin to Pureti sub-county, and then also crossing to Nyamira County. And Honorable Speaker, I want to also add that we've never had divers doing the work, those who are trained. These are just local boys who are trying their best. I was there on Sunday, and for real, the residents and mainly the family members are still in agony now that Peter Terrer has not been retrieved. But save for the community, Julius Tanui was retrieved, and the funeral was there on Tuesday. So the members of the community were painfully asking that they get the bridge to cross, because every Tuesday, every Monday and Thursday, they cross to Pureti, and then they also cross to Nyamira. And that one alone tells us that if this bridge or the bridges are not done, and these members of the community do not cross to do their business because of the market days, then they have nothing to as source of living. And Honorable Speaker, I also want to add that the children go to school across from Sigawet Soin to Pureti, Mapasi, and then they also cross to Nyamira. This has also been a challenge, and we cannot tell the children not to cross. So, Honorable Speaker, the complaint is, the main issue is that from independence up to date, every rainy season, our people are lost, at least two. So I think immediate response should be done, and especially comprehensive measure. So I'm still asking the chair to do more on this. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that it is important to listen, and as the chair said, the county government and the national government should act, and they should work in collaboration, and especially to get the bridge. It is not something very expensive. It is not something that cannot be done. These members of Coil Seal are feeling bad that they are landlocked, and they need to be supported. Over 10,000 in the location. They need to cross, and even from Pureti to Soin, and then from Nyamira, because of the tea estate, the tea plantations, they are leprous, Honorable Speaker. Women cry, they are widowed, children have no parents.
Order, Honorable Member, you're supposed to seek some few clarifications, not basically go on literally a serious debate and a statement on the needs. So I've given you quite a bit of a leeway, but then please conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm guided. Thank you. I believe this will be done. Thank you so much.
Give an opportunity to the Honorable Dr. Makari Muli, and then followed by Justice Kemei, who is the MP for Sigawet.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I've listened to the response to the question, and really, Honorable Speaker, first of all, I want to thank God that one body was found. But Honorable Speaker, communities and parents are going through a very hard time, very traumatizing time as a result of what is happening in the country. So many people have been washed away,
and mostly because most of the rivers do not have the bridges as they are saying. So the proposal to construct drifts is important, Honorable Speaker. But even as we do that, I think it is important, Chairman, that we think of a short-term solution to some of these problems. Because construction of bridges all over the country will be very expensive. I remember when the Nziu River, when we got some people drowned, Honorable Speaker, there were some local divers who were there, and they did a lot of work. And they were promised that after that they could be trained local divers in most of these rivers, so that when there is a problem, Honorable Speaker, we could have a very short-term kind of reaction to whatever is happening. But the problem, Honorable Speaker, is the government makes a lot of promises when this happens, like it has happened down in Kericho. I'm imagining after another 1 month, this will now be a gone case. People will have forgotten, Honorable Speaker. How I wish that we come up with a comprehensive program to also train some of these areas because they are known, what I call the black spots. We train local divers who can actually assist. It will be cheaper for the government. It will also be very easy and very convenient for the communities who live around those areas. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to say it is important that the government address that matter, even as we think of a long-term way of construction of bridges. I submit, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Justice Kemei, Honorable MP for Sigowet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity that you've given me. I want to thank my colleague, the Honorable Beatrice Kemei, for raising the matter. And I also want to thank the chairman for the response that he has given to the House. However, Mr. Speaker, the way Honorable Makali Muli has said, we require a more permanent solution to the issue at hand. Mr. Speaker, so many people cross on a daily basis. At the moment, River Chemosit and River Sondu are swollen, and they are very angry, Mr. Speaker. But the livelihoods of our people depend on crossing to Magwagwa in Nyamira and also to Bureti, where they earn their livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, the footbridge is a function of the county government. And I want to ask the chairman who has given the response that the national government comes on board also to construct a bridge that can be used by motor vehicles crossing between Bureti and Nyamira from this area of Sigowet, so Mr. Speaker, so that the situation can be ameliorated. Mr. Speaker, I also want to ask the chairman to give us a proper way in which our local divers, who played a key role in the retrieving the body of one of the victims, Mr. Speaker, that they are trained and given kits so that when it comes to immediate response, those are the people we'll be relying upon. Mr. Speaker, that clarification is what I seek, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
The chair of the, do you want to enrich your response a little bit further, given the concerns and the clarifications sought by the members? But before you do that, I think I'll give Honorable Professor Nikal to just weigh in a little.
Mr. Speaker, I just got a bit of the response. But Mr. Speaker, we have a huge national issue. And the issue we are raising are actually just small bits of a major issue. And the responses we are getting are also small bits. The issue of floods and the issue of people dying and the issue of bridges, if we leave alone that particular case that we are talking about, if you look, I think there is River Nziu bridge in Nzui, which has killed people actually every time we have a flood. And before we actually came to these floods, it was known that we were going to have an El Nino. And Mr. Speaker, there were even preparations, and I think we talked about funds being put aside to respond to the issue of El Nino. Mr. Speaker, that's the bigger picture. You know that in the past, we had actually special programs that were looking at these issues so that whenever we had the issue of floods, whenever we had issue of droughts, there were actually programs in place that looked at this. So we cannot, my view is that this should be looked at in a specific manner. We have a special program, even if it's at the level of a ministry, so that we actually put in place certain known areas where problems are likely to occur. When we talk of Quorum, Mr. Speaker, this is a program that's been talked about even before independence in 1954. And we are still going. So my view, as we are going to make promises about these bridges here and there, is to look at special programs that looks at all these issues and address them more comprehensively. Thank you for obliging me the time.
Chairman Tongoyo, please take just a minute to
just
we go to the next statement.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to, of course, agree with the colleague members that we all know that it's just beyond what has happened in Kericho. There are many more other cases in the country happening, especially as a result of the ongoing El Nino. And it's for that matter that we have the National Emergency Response Team that look globally such problems. So it's an issue that the government has to speedily take upon it to look that there are going to be a concerted effort between both levels of government. Of course, Mr. Speaker, within the county government, there is always a Department of Emergency, I think it's emergency kind of a response and disaster and emergency response, which is supposed actually to provide the gear and the swimming gears to the divers. So we are going to ensure that such is achieved so that Kenyans who probably get drawn can be rescued. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we also take the opportunity to call Kenyans to be vigilant, to be cautious, especially during this time of El Nino, so that they don't cross when there is imminent kind of flows of water. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We have another statement which was, or rather a response of, what is your point of order, the Honorable David Kimlai?
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. The Chair for Interior and Administration, who has just been on the floor, I raised a statement more than 2 weeks ago. The Speaker had ordered the Chair.
Unfortunately, it's a different matter.
No, it's a very pertinent issue because it was concerning a crime, one of the business ladies that was killed. And as we talk now, the nearest center again, there are some robbers who have actually clobbered one of the businessmen also and is currently fighting for his life in hospital. And given that the Chair has not responded on the first statement, and the same wave of crimes are still ongoing in my constituency, it raises pertinent issue as to the management of the security situation in Soy constituency, which the Chair and the security authorities should take it seriously. Thank you.
Chair, I think you better give an undertaking. You don't have time to make a response now, but give an undertaking to the honorable member. We have kind of dispensed with the strict application of the rules because of the urgency of the lives of people, which is, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Guided. It's true, we had written to the ministry seeking for the response, and by close of business yesterday, we made the same follow-up, and they told us they were still putting pieces together with the responsible security agents and the GAO officers.
When will you have that response which was sought by him? So that it's taken note of and then it appears on the order paper. But of course it's going to be after.
Of course I know, Mr. Speaker, we are breaking for recess, but we are going to follow the laid down procedures to relay once we get it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We take note of that, and I'm sure you'll do the needful. The next one is Minister, Chair for the Defense and Intelligence and Foreign Relations, Nelson Koech. Who did the statement initially, who was he? Is a member of Parliament for CTNA, MP for Turbo.
I actually need to seek your indulgence, Honorable Speaker. I was directed to respond by yesterday, the 6th, by the Speaker. Unfortunately, I think the hierarchy of communication between the Speaker and my committee clerk, there was some misstep, and I took my call yesterday to find out where the communication was. Fortunately, yesterday it was still in the table office, which was handed over to my committee clerk yesterday, and subsequently sent to the Ministry of Defense for response. This is a very serious matter, Honorable Speaker. It involves loss of life of about 5 people, and I did not want a rushed response. I therefore then did request the Ministry of Defense to give a substantive response, and this morning we had not received any communication yet. I would request that you direct, using your own wisdom, when you will want the information availed. But I'm willing and ready to avail the information as soon as possible.
It can only appear when we come back from the recess, from the look of things. I direct that it be given the earliest opportunity and priority.
Well guided, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. We are supposed to, we will have to skip order number 11 and go straight to order number 12. Order number 12 is, I'm made to understand, is time bound, and we have to dispose it off. So order number 12, yeah.
Order number 12, motion. The Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Asset Recovery Fund Regulations 2023.
The Chair, you have you approached the chair and wanted to. Can you approach the chair again, please? Proceed, Honorable Chepkonga.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this was supposed to be moved by my Vice Chair, but unfortunately, we have another meeting that is ongoing, so I'm therefore moving this motion. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the House.
Order. Read it verbatim as per the rules. You move the motion, first of all.
Yes, I'm moving.
Okay?
Yeah.
That this House adopts the report. Proceed.
Yeah. The Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund Regulation 2023, legal notice number 151 of 2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 5th December 2023, and pursuant to the provision of Section 113, subsection 1 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act number 9 of 2009, approves the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund Regulation 2023, published as legal notice number 151 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, these are regulations that have been made pursuant to the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund Act that was passed by this House. The crux of the regulations, Mr. Speaker, is intended to provide a framework for the administrative operations of the fund and utilization of properties and money standing to the credit of the fund as required under Section 113(1) of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. Mr. Speaker, the agency that is tasked with the responsibility of recovering assets that are suspected to have been laundered receives monies and assets, including houses, vehicles, monies, and it takes into its custody. Once they receive all this, you may have seen one, Mr. Speaker, recently, of an employee of Kera, in which the agency that deals with anti-money laundering recovered monies amounting to about 95 million shillings in an account of a very junior officer that was working for Kera. He had also invested part of these proceeds that she acquired in purchasing 15 apartments. All those assets, Mr. Speaker, were recovered by the agency. They recovered the monies. They also recovered the properties and placed it under its administration. Now, these properties, Mr. Speaker, once it is recovered and the due process has been completed in court, that money that has been recovered must be sent to the consolidated fund. Now, these regulations provides the method and procedure of dispersing that money to the consolidated fund, and the agency retains 5% for purposes of administration. So that is the gist of these regulations. The rest provides for the management of that particular fund. And Mr. Speaker, this is a very important agency. Without this agency, people will be laundering money here and there, people will be stealing public funds. This agency has done a lot of work. As we speak right now, it has billions of shillings in its account, awaiting the conclusion of a number of cases that are pending in court. On the policy background, Mr. Speaker, these regulations are very important in the effort by this nation to combat money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation of financing that is largely anchored in the Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2009. They are also anchored in the attendant regulations, namely the Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Regulations of 2023 and the Prevention of Terrorism Act of 2023. Further, the Criminal Assets Recovery Fund, established pursuant to Section 109 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, had not been operationalized due to the lack of regulations. And these regulations will ensure that the main act or the parent act would now be operationalized. Mr. Speaker, there was a suit that was filed sometimes in 2022 against the Assets and Recovery Agency, in which the court ordered that regulations should be finalized within 6 months. And so these regulations have been brought to this House in compliance of that order also, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the regulations that have been prepared, Mr. Speaker, are purely operational for purposes of ensuring that the fund operates in a manner that is consistent with the laws of this country. The regulations, Mr. Speaker, complies with the Statutory Instruments Act. They were brought to this House within the period that is allowed by law, that is within 7 days. We also had the explanatory memorandum submitted to the committee, which we considered the justification for making these regulations, and we were satisfied. We also satisfied, Mr. Speaker, that the authority undertook the necessary public participation as required under Article 10 and Article 118 of the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, we are submitting these regulations for approval by this House to enable the agency to implement and operationalize the fund that was created by the Parent Act. And I therefore move, and I would like to request the Honorable Murugara, who was the People's Chairman in the last committee of the Committee of Delegated Legislation in the 12th Parliament.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to rise at the second the approval of the committee's report on the proposed fund to be established. Mr. Speaker, I remember my days in the Committee on Delegated Legislation during the 12th Parliament with nostalgia. I remember how we used to go through these statutory instruments and how we would eventually come to approve or decline to approve those regulations in accordance with the Statutory Instruments Act. I have gone through the committee's report, and I'm satisfied that these regulations actually met the requirements of the Act and therefore deserve to be approved by this House. The Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund is a fund that is supposed to assist the Asset Recovery Unit deal with the funds recovered from proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering. These are regulations which have been formulated by the agency making regulation, and it is important to note that all the requirements of the Statutory Instruments Act have been complied with. The requirements include the statutory timelines when they are supposed to be submitted to the House, the public participation, which is very important. This has been done to the fullest. The regulatory impact statement confirming what impact these regulations have and what the committee has considered to be any further information required by the House to pass the regulations. It is important to note that the Asset Recovery Unit or the Asset Recovery Agency is the agency tasked under POCAMLA to deal with asset recovery. There have been murmurs from the EACC that this agency encroaches on their mandate. But we have constantly said that the EACC deals with assets of corruption, while the agency, the Asset Recovery Agency, deals with assets recovered from anti-money laundering and the proceeds of other crime. While corruption is one of those crimes, there are other crimes from which assets can be recovered, and therefore that does not fall within the mandate of the EACC. So as we stand today, the Asset Recovery Unit wishes to detach itself from the Office of the Honorable Attorney General so that it is able to exercise its mandate as an independent unit. That is welcome, and the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs is actually assisting them to make that detachment. Otherwise, these are regulations that will assist them a lot in doing their duties under the law, which law is POCAMLA. With those remarks, I beg to second.
Honorable members, I now wish to propose a question that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering, Criminal Assets Recovery Fund, Regulations 2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 5th of December, 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 113, subsection 2 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2009, approves the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund Regulations 2023, published as legal notice number 151 of 2023. The Honorable Member of Parliament for Malava, Moses Injendi.
Mr. Speaker, I was not intending to speak on this one.
You are?
I was not intending to speak on this one, but because you've given me a chance to say something, Madam Speaker, I would really support these regulations because we are aware in this country, persons who are participating in these proceeds, accumulating and acquiring a lot of wealth, Mr. Speaker, they seem now to be controlling even the economy and the political life of this country. So, Mr. Speaker, if we can have regulations that can ensure that we are taking control of this, then this kind of money will not be in circulation in the country. Mr. Speaker, we are aware, because of these proceeds of crime, you realize that even we have some politicians, can, in the name of governors, in the name of senators, even MPs, that, Mr. Speaker, are funded by proceeds of this type, and therefore, if we have a regulation to control, then we would also ensure that when it comes to leadership of this country, we are not having persons who are coming in such a house, national assemblies or governors, who have actually benefited from this proceeds. Mr. Speaker, you see sometimes when you don't have a regulation, because some of the people who have this kind of money, even me as a person, I know them, I see them. But because now we have no regulation, even if you knew them, even if you see this money has come from this kind of source, because there's no regulation to control, Mr. Speaker, you have nothing you can do, you can only stare at it as it continues, as it prospers in this particular country. Mr. Speaker, because of this, you find that most of our young persons, particularly our children at the age of 18 to 25, 35, when it comes to even them looking for employment, Mr. Speaker, they're not keen on this. You'll find that most of them are spending their time in casinos and doing funny jobs, when actually there are persons who have been recruited to ensure that this kind of business is flourishing in the country. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this particular bill that will ensure this kind of practice is controlled in the country, if not banned completely, taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the chairman of Legal Committee.
Is the Honorable MP for Siolo South Bidu in the House?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity. I would like to add my voice on the same. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, you know very well that in Kenya, it's so funny that anything which is criminal, like theft, corruption, and all these things, money laundering, people are being celebrated for that. They are called more or less like heroes. That you steal public property, I mean funds, and then you are celebrated in wherever you are. It's so funny. Those are the kind in a developed world, or anybody who has a feeling cannot celebrate people who are doing some of these crimes. Making these regulations will be able to help this country, and we are also faced by the same problems. You see, with our CDF and all these things, we have people who are staff who are there, and then when there is any problem, then people just loot the monies and go away with it. This could be a big problem, but with the regulations which are in place, then we can be able, this particular bill will be able to curb some of these things. So I will be able, I want to say that I will support the approval of this process of crime act and the regulations. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, before I give an opportunity to another member, I want to recognize the presence of youth from Kamuwongo Compassion Self-Help Group from Mingi North, who are in the public gallery. And I would want to give an opportunity to the Member of Parliament for Mingi North, I think Zengu. Is he in the House? You want to do it on his behalf? Proceed.
Thank you very much.
Your neighbor?
Yes, we are neighbors with Mwingi North. Okay. I'm the Member of Parliament for Tharaka constituency, okay. Which the only boundary between us is Tana River, in between. So on behalf of Honorable Zengo, engineer, the Member of Parliament for Mwingi North, may I welcome the team from Kamuwongo. And I know Kamuwongo very well. It's just after Mwingi town on your way towards Kuso and Kase. to the House to observe the proceedings of the day. This is the House to which they brought Honorable Zengo to represent them. He's a very active member. It's only that today possibly is committed to other nation-building activities, but may they feel most welcome to observe and hear what this House does. And when they go back, can they greet the people of Kamugongo, Mwingi North, and their neighbors who are Fitharaka. Thank you so much.
Okay. Let's go back to our motion. And I would give an opportunity to the Member of Parliament for Seme, Professor James Nyikalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to comment on this motion and this committee report. Mr. Speaker, this is an extremely important report because the two things that are killing this country, whether we like it or not, is corruption and tribalism. And this is addressing that. It is therefore important that we actually move meaningfully, sincerely, to address the issue of fighting corruption. Mr. Speaker, the use of proceeds of corruption is an extremely important factor in fighting corruption. When people make huge monies and they use them and live extravagantly, exposing our youth to what it seems like a good life, but these are proceeds of crime. They pervert the thinking of our youth. They pervert the morals of our society. So it's extremely important that the proceeds of crime are addressed. And therefore, this is an important report. Of late, Mr. Speaker, you have seen EACC is doing a good job in recovery. And therefore, the agency that is dealing with these proceeds, funds, buildings that are recovered needs to be strengthened. And therefore, this report is extremely important. But Mr. Speaker, one more time, we are dealing with an important thing casually. Look at this report. This report, its observations are contrary to its recommendations. If you look at the observations on page 13, the committee observations, the only area that the committee actually comes out strongly that the report is okay is in regard to public participation. I think paragraph 20 under 3.1, the public 3.2, the public participation was done well. In 22, there's evidence that what is done well. In 23, the same. When you come to the regulatory impact, the report itself acknowledges that there was need for an impact. And they acknowledge that that impact was not done. And then takes refuge in exemption within the law. Surely, even if the law gives you an exemption, you should do the job you should do. So that the report notes under 3.324, pursuant to provisions of Section 5A2, the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, an impact assessment has not been prepared for these statutory instruments as it falls within the exemptions provided under Section 9. I think it's good, but I would have said, get the impact report. When there is an exemption, it doesn't say you shouldn't. You should. But then you will say, because the exemption does not stop you. I'll put my argument.
What's your point of order, the Honorable MP Muragana?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, when there is an exemption, it means there is no burden placed on you to do that particular act. There would be no reasonable man who would place a burden on himself or herself to do that which you have been exempted from doing. That obligation is taken away. Therefore, why would we belabor to say, in spite of the exemption, we should have done A, B, C, D, E? Absolutely out of normacy. It's not normal to do that. And I'm informing Honorable Nyikala.
Mr. Speaker, exactly my point. If it was so, the committee would not have even bothered to raise it. If the committee has raised it that it wasn't done, the committee itself, Mr. Speaker, has shown some concern, and therefore can now take refuge under the exemption. We are dealing with extremely important matters. Mr. Speaker, if you go 3.425, the committee then notes that an error observed in Regulation 4 seemed to be amending the parent act by the use of the words in addition, which means it was putting more than in the parent act. Then the committee says, okay, we can accept that, it will be corrected in the corrigendum. We are not sure, we don't even have that corrigendum here. Mr. Speaker, if you then go to 26, under Regulation 5, the committee observed that the sub-regulation B and C were providing for administrative money for the agency, which is actually the main thing there. A fact that the regulation-making authority acknowledged and undertook to correct by way of corrigendum. Mr. Speaker, I would plead with you to give me more time, because this is extremely important. Having said all that,
I have given you 2 more minutes.
Having said all that, the committee then goes ahead to actually then recommend that we accept the report, the regulations. Mr. Speaker, we have been faced, this House, its integrity has been put to question because it has passed laws that have gone to courts, and the courts have actually said that those laws are not constitutional. Who else, other than this parliament, with all its capacities, must know that the laws are not constitutional before they are passed? Mr. Speaker, we must check the speed with which we are doing things in this House. It may be possible to do that. I don't want the embarrassment of one more time passing something that people will go to court. I would have said that the committee would have got back and said, correct these regulations, bring them back when everything is in order. Where there is exemption, don't mention the exemption. Don't raise our suspicion, those of us who are not lawyers. With that, Mr. Speaker, I oppose the adoption of this report.
I can see there is very limited interest in this, except now I have the women rep for Nandi, Cynthia Muge. Yes? You wish to weigh in on this? Okay, you'll have an opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice on this report from the Committee on Delegated Legislation on the issue of Asset Recovery Fund. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I want to say that I support this particular report, and having gone through the committee's report, Honorable Speaker, I have a feeling that they did a thorough job to an extent that they noted the inconsistencies and the addition of different words that would have altered the other act, Honorable Speaker, under Clause 4. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that the asset recovery, especially in this era where this government is serious about fighting corruption, is important, Honorable Speaker. It is important that we're thinking about it as a House, Honorable Speaker, for it to have regulations that are actually well structured to ensure that we are able to deal with the asset recovery, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I happen to sit in a committee in this House, Honorable Speaker, on implementation. And Honorable Speaker, I think living each day, Honorable Speaker, gives you an opportunity to look and see and find out things, Honorable Speaker, that you would have never thought they would be possible, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in one of the sittings, Honorable Speaker, we were looking at Kenya Railways property, Honorable Speaker, and the EACC gave us a long list of assets that had been taken away by corrupt people, Honorable Speaker, in this country. Assets that are worth billions of Kenyans' money, Honorable Speaker. And in that list, Honorable Speaker, there was a lot of money that was being recovered in terms of assets and even hard cash, Honorable Speaker, that was supposed to be given back to the government because they are proceeds of corruption, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as you know, financial crimes in this country are increasingly becoming complex because I think people they say survival is for the fittest, and they are finding ways of being the fittest while at it, Honorable Speaker. They're becoming so complex, and any opportunity that we get in recovering the money that had been swindled, the money that had gone away through corruption, Honorable Speaker, is welcomed so that we are able to then take it back to the government, Honorable Speaker. The illicit activities, Honorable Speaker, that end up in producing these monies that are proceeds of corruption, Honorable Speaker, they are also evolving. There are so many things that are happening, and there are so many things that people are doing to be able to obtain money in a manner that is not right, Honorable Speaker. And I support this particular report, Honorable Speaker, on the creation of a criminal assets recovery fund regulation so that we give power this particular body, Honorable Speaker, to be able not only to manage, but to also be able to put that particular money that are proceeds of corruption to more useful users, Honorable Speaker, in the country where we have so many issues that we are dealing with. So, Honorable Speaker, I appreciate the committee for having seen it fit to be able to come up with these regulations so that we can give power to this particular body to deal with asset recovery, Honorable Speaker, so that any time that you have proceeds of corruption, you don't sit pretty in your house and imagine that the war is over, Honorable Speaker. And we do not also want to lose that money when it is recovered, Honorable Speaker, because you see, there are different tiers of corruption. There is corruption where someone obtained that money. Then there is the corruption where the person who recovers that money also has an opportunity to be corrupt and take it back. So this particular policy regulation, Honorable Speaker, I am sure that it is going to be able to prevent that from happening so that we don't have corruption money being eaten by corrupt people on a higher level, Honorable Speaker. So I support and I appreciate the committee for having gone through it in such a manner.
MP for jurist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice on this report. Mr. Speaker, while I applaud the committee for coming up with a report, I tend to think that we have a confusion as far as asset recovery is concerned in this country. We operate under several acts of parliament, one of them being the POCOMLA, the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, and the other one is a SECA. Both of them have functions of asset recovery. As far as this report is concerned, it is only the assets that are recovered by the Asset Recovery Agency that will go to this fund. One wonders, what happens to the criminal assets that are recovered under a SECA? Where do they go? Did we, as Parliament, try to harmonize these very many functions of these many different acts? The second thing, Mr. Speaker, is that we have just passed a few days ago the conflict of interest bill. I'm not sure whether it has been assented to by the President, but if assented to, it becomes another act of Parliament. And that one also has some asset recovery provisions within it. As Parliament, do we just go and pass regulations just because the executive has given it to us? Or do we look at it and try to harmonize with the other acts that also talk about the same subject matter for which recovery of assets, criminal assets which are proceeds of crime? The other things I'm seeing in this regulation, Mr. Speaker, is under Section 6 of the regulation, Section 7, sorry. It talks about the Asset Recovery Advisory Board. Advisory boards just advise. Actually, if you look at the role of the advisory board, A talks about generally advise, B talks about advise, C also talks about advising the agency. Advise means just advise, whether that is taken or not. It's a different matter. But under Section 8, it talks about administration of the fund. Here it says the function of the administrator of the fund shall be to open and operate a bank account with the approval of the board. If the function of the board is to advise, where is this approval coming from again? It looks like a mishmash of what we are saying. Here we are saying they are an advisory board. Here we are making them an executive board, giving approvals. So I will urge the committee, the delegated legislation committee, as they look at this myriad of requests for changes in regulations, they try to be more, they try to look at it critically and just don't pass it because this is what the executive wants. I tend to think while criminal asset recovery fund is a good thing, it should be a fund for all criminal recovery of all criminal assets, not those only under PCOMLA. The bigger agency that recovers assets that are procured through corruption is EACC. Actually, every day we see headlines saying that they have recovered X number of land, this much money. Where does that money go? Does it go to the consolidated fund? While the one under asset recovery agency goes to this fund? So my suggestion, let us make something that fits what is the intention of these regulations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Jomvu, Badi.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Na mimi nataka kuunga mkono ripoti hii na kumpongeza mwenyekiti na kamati yake yote kwa kazi nzuri ambayo wamefanya. Mheshimiwa Spika, itajulikana kama vile wanenaji wenzetu walivyosema juu ya hii mambo ya asset recovery ama urudishaji wa mali iliyonyakuliwa ni jambo la muhimu kukiwa kutakuwa kumewekwa sheria. Kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi natoka kwenye mkutano sasa hivi wa komiti yangu ya uchukuzi ambapo leo hii tulikuwa tumemuita mkurugenzi wa halmashauri ya viwanja vya ndege wa hapa Nairobi, na yale ambayo tumeweza kuzungumza, tunaona kuwa kulikuwa na ardhi kubwa sana ya halmashauri ya viwanja vya ndege, lakini ardhi ile karibu robo tatu imeweza kuchukuliwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, na hii ni kazi ambayo komiti hii na serikali yafaa sana kuangalia, kwa sababu mara ya kwanza walikuwa na sababu ya kusema wanataka kustawisha uchumi ama biashara wa kutengeza magodowns, kisha baadaye wakabadilisha sasa. Badala ya magodowns ikakuwa ni mahoteli ambayo yanatengenezwa hapo. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia si Nairobi peke yake, ni Mombasa pia hali ni ile ile, Kisumu hali ni ile ile, na sehemu nyingi sana Mheshimiwa Spika hali ni ile ile. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia hali hii likithiri katika administration ama uongozi wa nyuma uliopita, Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaona leo mali ya shirika la reli imeweza kunyakuliwa katika kila mahali. Utakapotembea utakuta shirika la reli mali yake hii imeweza kuchukuliwa. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia ni sehemu mashirika mengi ambao watu wamechukua, na pesa hizi unaziona kama wanenaji wenzangu walivyosema, zinarudi sasa. Unaona zinafanya mambo mengine kama ya uchaguzi ama mambo mengine ya kuingia katika uongozi ambao ni pesa ambazo si halali. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hayo machache, mimi pia napenda kuchukua fursa hii kuiunga ripoti hii mkono na kuwapatia nafasi wanenaji wenzangu pia waweze kuchangia. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
What's your point of order? The Honorable Mohamed Ado, MP for Wajir West, Wajir South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Looking at the numbers of members, honorable members on the floor of the, in the chamber, we don't have quorum, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Fair enough. Yeah, it is indeed true that we don't have a quorum. Can you ring the quorum bell, Sergeant at Arms, please?
The House currently is lacking the required number of members for the business to continue. And what we have seen is that a quorum bell has been directed and that it is underway currently. The members were considering the motion on the proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering criminal assets recovery fund regulations 2023. This is a motion that has been moved by the chairperson on Committee on Delegated Legislation, Honorable Samuel Chepkonga. And in this report, the committee seeks to have the House adopt the report as well as approve the proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering criminal assets recovery fund regulations 2023. In his presentation on this motion, the chairperson delegated legislation, Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, indicated that this is a fund, or this is an agency that will be purely looking at the monies that are proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering. This one separates the crimes of corruption, which is normally done by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And he indicated that this report comes in handy, bearing in mind that there are situations that have been seen in the country taking place with regards to money laundering, terrorism financing, as well as proliferation financing. So this report proposes, or in the regulations indicates that the regulations will provide methods and procedures over depositing of the money, and the agency will be retaining 5%. And the most important function of the asset recovery agency is that the agency is very important to stop money laundering and to enable the agency operationalize the fund that was created, or that would have been created. And this is a motion that is currently underway, but the House lacks the required number of members for the continuation of House business. Those are members walking in. Remember, the House at all times requires to have a stipulated number of members if the business of the House is to continue. And remember, this is a motion that would require adoption or approval. So in that manner, then it means that a very substantial number of members will be required to be in the House to enable the House make such judgments and approvals if at all the motion or such kind of regulations or legislation is to be considered in the House or on the floor of the House. This fund is said to be established and is a fund that is supposed to assist the unit deal with money recovered from crimes, we could say other crimes or anti-money laundering crimes. But we have seen a few members who have participated. A number of the members have shown support to these particular regulations that have been proposed in the report. And we have seen the Sebe, Member of Parliament, rejecting the report or the regulations on grounds that there was no impact assessment that was done, and yet the committee indicated on the report that there was no impact assessment that was done, and that this may pose or may risk the House being taken to court on passing a regulation and not undertaking important steps that maybe were required or may have not been required but have been indicated to have not been done. So that is what was currently underway on the floor of the House. Consideration of the motion of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund Regulations 2023, a report that has been compiled by the Committee on Delegated Legislation, and that the chairperson, Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, has presented it before the House, seeking its adoption as well as its approval. And members, as you've seen, they have been working into the chambers. In no time, I believe we will have achieved the required number of members that are expected to be in the House for the House business to continue. And of course, more members will have the opportunity to participate on this particular motion. At the end of it, the members will vote on it to see whether they will adopt and approve of it or they will be rejecting it. As you have seen, the members who have taken participation on this motion, some have stood to express support on the motion, while others have pointed or rather faulted a few clauses in that particular report on the regulations, and they have expressed to object with it. But at the end of the day, as many members or more members continue to participate and give their opinions on it, then at the end of the day, we will be able to know whether this particular report on the regulations will have been adopted. Remember, this is a report that is stipulating a few regulations on the establishment of an asset recovery agency and a fund that will be looking at the recovery of assets and proceeds of crime, just from anti-money laundering and other crimes, away from the corruption crimes, which in this case are usually undertaken by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So the Sergeant at Arms there is keeping check of whether the number has been achieved. If the number has been achieved, then she will, or rather they will, alert the Speaker or the Chair, and the House will be called to order for the House business to continue. If you are just joining us, is that the House was considering the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund Regulations 2023. It is a motion by the Committee on Delegated Legislation, but in the middle of the debate, the House lacked the requisite number necessitating a quorum bell. Well, that is the Sajata terms. The white paper is an indication that the House has achieved the required number of the members.
Honourable members, we now have a quorum.
I hand you over back to the proceedings.
We have a quorum. I would call upon Madam Zamzam Chimba. Zamzam Chimba, no, it had not reached reply yet, and additional people have come in now. Zamzam, proceed. Okay, what about Paul Biego? But I have people who want to contribute.
What is it? I'm not ready. I'll just come.
No more person interested. Biego, you want to contribute? Okay, proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Thank you very
Order, Honorable Chepkonga. I was actually beckoning the Honorable Justice. Yes. Allow him. You have quorum
Just 1
already,
minute.
so don't.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity you've given me, and I rise to support the regulations on anti-money laundering. Mr. Speaker, we must slay corruption in this country, and it is good law and good regulations that can only slay corruption in this country. Once we've done that as Parliament, then we leave it to the investigative agencies and the judiciary to kill corruption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Honorable Elachi Beatrice, you want to contribute? I can see you put in there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support. And I think the most important thing is that I think we've passed a few good bills that can help us curb corruption, Mr. Speaker. And I'm hoping that even as we pass this, that we are realigning the country back to understand that if there is a cancer that is killing us, that we need to deal with, is this corruption. I therefore support, and I want to thank the delegated committee for bringing this, and indeed for
Honorable
ensuring.
Chepkonga,
Thank you.
proceed now because there's nobody else who is there.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to reply. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Nyikal, my very good friend, the Member of Parliament for Seme, said that the Regulatory Making Authority ought to have brought the Regulatory Impact Assessment Statement. Mr. Speaker, that is expressly excused under the Statutory Instruments Act. When something is excused, Mr. Speaker, you don't need to do it. It's no longer a burden under the law. So we consider that something that was waived and it was not necessary. Secondly, with respect to what Honorable Ali had raised, to the conflicting statutes, it's not conflicting, Mr. Speaker. The ASECA is implemented by EACC, and the POCAMLA is implemented by the Anti-Corruption Agency, the Anti-Recovery Agency, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to assure Honorable Ali that there is a committee at the top in which all these agencies meet for purposes of ensuring that there is seamless implementation of all laws that touch on recoveries. And so with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Honorable members, I put the question. Honorable members, I now put the question that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering, Criminal Assets Recovery Fund, Regulations 2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 5th of December, 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 113, subsection 2 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2009, approves the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Criminal Assets Recovery Fund, Regulations 2023, published as legal notice number 151 of 2023. As many of the opinion say aye. Aye. As many of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 13, motion, the prevention of terrorism, implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on suppression of terrorism, regulations 2023.
Chair delegated legislation. Can you move your...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the prevention of terrorism, implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on suppression of terrorism, Regulation 2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 5th December 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 36A, subsection 2 of the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2012, approves the prevention of terrorism, implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on suppression of terrorism, Regulation 2023, published in the legal notice number 152 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, the general import of these regulations is that, you know, our country is a member of the United Nations. And under the United Nations, we have Security Council. Security Council is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that it prevents acts of terrorism that may happen anywhere within the globe. And so, Mr. Speaker, the Security Council passed a resolution on how to curtail the activities of terrorists across the globe. Now, as a country, as you know, Mr. Speaker, under Article 2 of the Constitution, part of the sources of our law are conventions and treaties in which Kenya is a party to and has ratified. Mr. Speaker, this convention with regard to terrorism has been ratified by Kenya. And so these regulations have been brought to this House to domesticate the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. Mr. Speaker, Regulation 4 requires Kenya's mission to the United Nations to forward any resolutions of the of the Security Council without delay to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for purposes of ensuring that those decisions of the Security Council in which Kenya is a member is domesticated. So the general import of these regulations, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that people who are suspected to be assisting terrorists to commit terrorist acts, including financing, are designated and sanctioned by countries so that we seek to eliminate people who want to cause mayhem and chaos across this globe. So these regulations, Mr. Speaker, has established a committee under the Ministry of Interior in which it receives information from the United Nations. Once it receives that information, designating a person to be a suspect, then it has to go through the due process. It is then domesticated into our own process, Mr. Speaker. As you know, Article 47 of the Constitution requires that there must be fair administrative action. And pursuant to that particular article, we have passed as a House the fair administrative action. So this committee must ensure, notwithstanding that the person has been designated by the Security Council, we must ensure that we comply with our own domestic laws, including the Constitution itself. So this committee, once it receives, it conducts due process to satisfy itself that it is true that such a person has been properly designated as a person that has been assisting terrorism activities across the globe. And so once the committee designates such a person, it then identifies the assets. The regulations provides the process of identification of those assets and the freezing of those assets, Mr. Speaker. That committee is also charged with the responsibility of conducting hearings from those persons that have been designated, so that if you are designated unfairly, you can appear before that committee and defend yourself. These regulations provide for that procedure in which you can seek to be removed as a designated person. You can also apply to the United Nations Security Council to seek to be removed as a designated person, because it has also elaborate procedures of conducting fair hearing proceedings to ensure that people are not unnecessarily designated without any cause and without any reason. So, Mr. Speaker, in short and in brief, these regulations are about 33. It just establishes the procedure, establishes the committee. The committee considered all these regulations. We were satisfied that the regulations were made pursuant to Article 41 of the UN Charter that is now being domesticated in these regulations. Two, Mr. Speaker, the regulations were transmitted to this House within the timelines that is required by the Statutory Instruments Act. The regulatory impact statement was not required because it is part of the exemptions under the Statutory Instruments Act. And so, Mr. Speaker, we were satisfied that these regulations complies with the laws of this nation. It complies with the Constitution. It complies with the Anti-Terrorism Act that was passed by this House, which these regulations has been made pursuant to those, to the provisions, to Section 50 of the Anti-Terrorism Act, Mr. Speaker. And so with those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the indomitable chair of the Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Murugara, to second.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to second the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation as regards the prevention of terrorism, implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on the suppression of terrorism regulations 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, terrorism is a worldwide problem. And this is the reason why the United Nations came up with the Prevention and Suppression of Terrorism Convention, in which Kenya is now a signatory. It's a requirement under that particular act that the domesticating country must also have a domestic law that deals with anti-terrorism. And therefore, Kenya has the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which is the parent act to the Porter regulations, as these regulations will now be popularly known. Having gone through the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation, I am also persuaded that this report conforms to the requirement of the Statutory Instruments Act, which is the parent law when it comes to making of subsidiary legislation or delegated legislation. As properly enunciated by the chairperson, the committee appears to have considered all the facets and requirements under that act, and these regulations do satisfy those requirements. Most important is public participation, where Kenyans were supposed and gave their positions as regards the regulations. Once that is met, and the other ones, including the policy background, the statutory timelines, and whether there is any need for an impact, a regulatory impact statement, then the committee recommends approval of those regulations. It is important to note that the regulatory impact statement is an exemption, and once it is exempted, there is no obligation, there is no requirement for the regulatory making authority to prepare that statement. So with those remarks, I urge the House to actually adopt the report and the regulations, and I do second.
Honorable members, I propose the question. This House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation and its consideration of the prevention of terrorism, implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on suppression of terrorism, regulations 2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 5th December 2023, and that pursuant to the provisions of Section 36A, subsection 2 of the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2012, the House approves the prevention of terrorism implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on suppression of terrorism, regulations 2023, published as legal notice number 152 of 2023. Honorable Makali Mulu has stepped out for other parliamentary business. The Honorable Moses Injendi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, this is simply because the Kenya nation has actually ratified almost all the UN conventions on terrorism. And Mr. Speaker, therefore, it's important now for the country to domesticate this in our country through actually these regulations that the committee has come up with. Mr. Speaker, most of us are aware Kenya appears to be a hotspot for terrorism, for obvious reasons that most of these members are aware of. Was it about 4 months ago when there was an alert that there is an imminent attack on, in Nairobi here, and most of us were so much scared, especially visiting areas that are popular to the Nairobians. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this becomes very critical that we have control over this. You're also aware, Mr. Speaker, that Kenya is hosting most of the offices, UN offices, headquarters, especially in Nairobi here. This also makes us a target because you are aware, when it comes to terrorism, somehow the target is so much to do with America and of course UK and those other countries. So, and because Kenya appears to host most of the American offices here, UK offices here, therefore we become a soft spot for attack, so as to cause fear, so as to cause terror in the world using Kenya. And you know, Kenya becomes a weaker country that can easily be attacked. And therefore, these regulations can happen. I mean, it can also happen with, can actually help with this kind of problem in the country. So, and when it comes to terrorism, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to even us being attacked, like it has happened before, it's not that someone will come from a foreign country to do this. Most of the persons who help with this kind of terrorism, they are our own locals, from our schools, from our villages, and therefore when we have proper regulations, even our schools, even in our spiritual places of worship, they can actually assist us with identifying the culprits to this so that we can arrest and therefore check on the attack on Kenyans through terrorism. Otherwise, I support this, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honorable Zamzam Shimba, the MP for Mombasa County.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kujumuika na wenzangu katika sheria hii na kuzingatia kwake kanuni ya kuzuia ugaidi, utekelezaji wa maazimio ya Baraza la Umoja wa Mataifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ugaidi umekuwa donda sugu katika dunia nzima. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, licha ya kuwa mswada huu naunga mkono, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka niseme katika bunge hili kuwa sheria ni msumeno hukata mbele na nyuma. isiwe sheria za ugaidi zinatungwa ili kuweza kudidimiza watu fulani na wengine wakiwa wanafanya mambo ya ugaidi wanaachwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa mfano mdogo tu, hapa Kenya tumekuwa na vijana ambao wamepotezwa na wamepoteza maisha yao kwa kushukiwa kuwa ni magaidi, Mheshimiwa Spika, na maisha yao yakapotea. Lakini juzi tumeona watu zaidi ya 400 wamekufa kule Shakahola, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini yule mhusika mkubwa inasikitisha kuwa amefungwa mwaka mmoja peke yake, Mheshimiwa Spika, na maisha ya watu yamepotea. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama bunge hili sisi pia tuweze kutunga sheria ambazo zitaweza kufuatwa na serikali, Mheshimiwa Spika. Pale Shakahola maisha mengi yalipotea sana, na lao ingekuwa pengine kama ilivyokuwa kwa yule Sheikh wetu Abu Drogo, tuliona alimiminiwa marisasi mengi sana kwa kushukiwa tu. Lakini huyu ambaye imethibitika na kumekuwa hata na makaburi ya halaiki, Mheshimiwa Spika, amefungwa mwaka mmoja tu. Mimi kama mama Mombasa County nashangaa sana. Subiri na ndugu yangu Mheshimiwa wa kule Magarini. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka niseme hivi. Sheria ambazo zinatungwa za mambo ya ugaidi ziangaliwe hata zaidi na zaidi. Tunaangalia mfano pale Israel na Palestine, Mheshimiwa Spika. Hawa wote wako katika Umoja wa Mataifa. Lakini leo Palestina wanauawa na Umoja wa Mataifa umeshindwa kudhibiti wale wa Israeli, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tunazungumza katika jumba hili liwe jumba la kuweka record, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ikiwa mtu ameua, awe ni Muislamu ameua, awe ni wa dini gani ameua, Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima sheria ni sheria ifuatwe, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo mimi naongea nikisema hivi, isiwe watu fulani ndio wanalengwa katika jamii. Mtu mbaya ni mbaya tu, lakini hata hivyo naweza kuunga kipengee hichi ambacho kimeletwa na kamati hii kwa kusema kuwa tuweze kudhibiti mambo ya ugaidi na tukifuatilia kanuni za Umoja wa Mataifa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwenzangu ananitoa timing. Sipendi kuzungumza, mtu akiweza kunitoa katika akili yangu aweze kutulia. Mheshimiwa, utapata wakati wako.
What is out of order, the Deputy Majority Leader?
Thank you very much. It's okay. You know, it's part of the debate. That's why this is a debating chamber. You say it is not true, it's not factual that Mackenzie, the perpetrator of the heinous act in Shakahola, has been jailed for 1 year. He's been jailed for 1 year for the offense of publishing films without permission, only that one. But the main case on the mass killings of those people is still in court, and therefore it is not factual. And you know, we are giving people the wrong impression that a person who has killed over 400 people has been jailed for only one year. It is not correct. I would like you to correct that so that people have the right information. And personally, I would like that guy to go to jail for life. And that is what every Kenyan is waiting for. But we are waiting
Deputy Majority Leader, that is not your call to make.
Okay, but I think that needs to be...
That is not your call to make.
That needs to be corrected.
That is the call of the judiciary.
Asante ndugu yangu.
Yeah, Honorable Zamzam Chimba, is there anything you need to correct?
Nimekubali kurekebishwa katika hilo, manake nimeona sasa siwaanze tu na hii ya kumaliza watu, anza vipi na mafilamu. Sisi tunataka tujue watu waliouawa, huyu amaliziwe kesi yake. Ingekuwa ni Muislamu angekuwa keshapigwa marisasi huko, yote amemalizwa hapo hapo. Wasiweze kuweka watu wanaweka na watu bado wana majonzi katika moyo wao. I stand guided, Mheshimiwa Spika. Asante Owen Baya. Kwa hiyo mimi namalizia nikisema sheria ni msumeno, ukata mbele na nyuma. Ikiwa sheria inafuatwa, Zamzamu akikosa isiangaliwe kuwa ni Zamzam Mohamed nipigwe risasi. Iangaliwe ni Zamzam Mohamed amekosa apigwe risasi, na Owen Baya pia akikosa na apigwe risasi. Sio sisi tunauawa na wengine wanapewa maziwa pale ndani ya sel na mkate wanakunywa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo na mimi nasikia uchungu. Let us stop profiling Muslim. Hata gaidi ni gaidi, awe anatoka katika dini gani. Kwa hiyo na mimi naunga mkono hiyo sheria iweze kupita. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi.
Very nice. Well, let's not talk about religion here. Let's talk about prevention of tourism.
Now, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the chance. I want also to take this opportunity and support the committee. And there's a saying, Honorable Speaker, that prevention is better than cure. I think what the committee has come up with, I'm not a member of that committee, but all they are saying is that to do some prevention. First and foremost, we have suffered very badly in the past. I lost 2 of my close friends. One of them was a relative of mine in the Westgate terrorism, if you can remember. And of course, there are those who suffered in the bombing of the US embassy. Mr. Speaker, I think the committee should go further and identify so that the people dealing with the criminal cases, the unit that deals with the criminal cases and prevention of terrorism should work harder so that we do not want to be taken, so that we cannot be ambushed by these people, and of course identify the culprits without actually giving an excuse, whether it's a Christian or whatever they are. Let's identify them and be able to see whether they have any further information to prevent any case that we have had as a country. The Speaker, I think that's what they should be able to prevent, because as it is today, I said one time there were rumors that there was going to be APCD. Of course, some of us got so scared, and we all move away from the hotspots. And Kenya, as a colleague has just mentioned, is a hotspot because we actually house quite a number of the world body officers here. UN officers are here. The embassies of various countries are here, including, of course, those that are the Middle East. We have the problem in the Middle East. We all know that. And of course, we have got the embassies here. So let's go at least a step further, Mr. Speaker, to be able to have mechanism to prevent. And as I said, prevention is better than cure. Prevent any action that can lead to human sufferings and the losses of the wealth and human lives. So, as I said, Mr. Speaker, we've suffered, and I think the best thing is to adopt this, the report that the committee has come up with. But the emphasis here is that prevention, have mechanism in the police, in the special branch, or whatever it is, to be able not to sleep over the job, because when it comes as a surprise, so that our people are safe. Those who are coming to invest in this country can invest in this country knowing that at least we are able to detect the criminals, and they're there. They're even listening to us as we are talking. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to adopt that report, and I request that report to continue and look for ways and means of putting a mechanism to be able to detect those that have got ill motives against our country. I support.
The Chair, Departmental Committee on Security, the Honorable Gabriel Tongoyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice to this. But, Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I want also to really support what the immediate member who has spoken, that when we discuss issues of terrorism, I think the issue of religion, tribe, region should not arise in any way. As a country, we all remember, it should be very fresh in our mind, that we are actually the biggest casualties and victim of terrorism, taking actually into account the 1998 US Embassy, the Westgate, Dissuit, and many, many other cases. So we should be able to address this issue with a lot of sobriety. Having said this, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the regulation, which is actually, Honorable Speaker, the main objective of the regulation is to enhance and make the issue of interception, prevention of supporting, financing, or aiding issues relating to facilitate issues of terrorism shiftily. We all know that the Terrorism Act prohibits any person to assist, to finance, in any way, activities of terrorism. And the regulation goes a long way to make it possible so that if there is a possibility of financing or transfer of funds, they are being intercepted swiftly and timely so that it can be, the issue of prevention of such can be achieved. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a regulation, and I want really to commend the committee led by Chepkonga, our very high-ranking member and experienced, for really shiftily moving into bringing this to the House so that we can able to give justice to it. So I call upon this House to support the regulation, and as a country, we should also move swiftly to put in place the needed support system, especially technology, to ensure that we achieve the intent of the regulation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
MP for Jomvu, the Honorable Twalib Badibadi.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii mimi pia kuweza kuchangia kama vile wenzangu walivyochangia. Kwanza Mheshimiwa Spika, neno moja ambalo naona nitatofautiana na rafiki yangu Mheshimiwa Tongoyo ni yale maneno ambayo anasema saizi kwa mambo haya ya terrorism yasiingizwe kwenye mambo ya kidini. Lakini nitasema kwa jambo hilo si jambo ambalo latakana lichukuliwe 100% ama 100%. Kwa sababu kama alivyosema Mheshimiwa Women Rep ama kiongozi wa kinamama wa kaunti ya Mombasa, Mama Zamzam, mama wa kazi, na alivyosema vizuri kabisa hapa, msimeno ni kukata mbele na nyuma. Na tukiangalia kuna watu kama Abu Drogo, tuna watu kama Abubakar Sharif Makaburi. Hawa ni watu ambao Mheshimiwa Spika waliuliwa kwa shauku tu kuwashukiwa huyu anahusiana na mambo ya terrorism. Leo Abubakar Sharif Makaburi alitabiri kifo chake kulingana na ile hali ambavyo walikuwa wanafuatwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama vile ilivyosemwa leo, huyu ashukiwa, lakini yuko mtu ambaye makaburi yamepatikana katika shamba yake kabisa. Mpaka leo abembelezwa huku, akibembelezwa huku, ati kwa filamu, ameenda kufungwa mwaka mmoja, bado zile kesi nyingine. Na hata hatujui pengine katika mwaka mmoja anaekiwa labda kitanda huko, TV na kila kitu hapo ndani ya hiyo ninino anatumia hapo. Mbona hawakuwapa nafasi hawa kina Abu Drogo na wengine kama vile hawa ambao wampa nafasi? Alafu jambo la pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia hii hali ya mambo ya terrorism, watu tuiangalia kwa watu kwa profiled ama kwa watu kuangalia watu kuwa unaeka ndevu kama vile mimi Mheshimiwa Badi siku hizi naanza kuweka ndevu, sasa pengine nitakuwa mtuhumiwa pia kulingana na hivi. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka kusema kitu kimoja juu ya mambo ya uhalifu wa hali ya dhuluma za kibinadamu. Leo hii tunaangalia Palestina, wanaua mpaka watoto katika mahospitali, manyumba, kila mahali, udhalimu mkubwa. Alafu Netanyahu yuwasema ati ni vizuri you kill them before they grow, kabla hawajakuwa uwapatilize mapema so that kwa wasiwe na matatizo wakati ujao. Mheshimiwa Spika,
what is out of order, Honorable Owen Baya?
You know, Honorable Speaker, the standing orders of this Parliament says that you cannot discuss the conduct of a head of state of another country. And it is important that we stick to that decorum. It is the standing orders. It is the standing. So, Honorable Badi, Honorable Speaker, needs to withdraw the remarks of the Honorable Netanyahu. You cannot discuss the president of another country.
Honorable Owen, ngoja, nyamaza.
Order.
Honorable Owen,
order.
Honorable
Majority
Zamzam,
Leader.
I want to tell you that you need
Order.
to learn certain things
Deputy
about...
Majority Leader, Honorable Owen Baya, I'm on my feet. Yeah, Honorable Buddy, you will continue with your contributions without mentioning the head of state of a friendly nation or mentioning that state without a substantive motion. Thank you.
Asante, Mheshimiwa Speaker. But Mheshimiwa Speaker, I want to differentiate between mentioning and discussing. Huh? Aya, sawa. Sasa kama ni hivyo, kama hutaki Netanyahu atajwe, nataja Palestina na Israeli. Kuwa Waisraeli wanaua wa Palestina.
Honorable Buddy, let me guide you.
Yes.
Do you remember where you said the children of Palestine are being killed? So long as you don't mention Israel, you don't mention Netanyahu, you can say that. But don't mention a friendly nation adversely, don't mention the head or any state officer in that nation adversely without a substantive motion. You can talk about what is happening without adverse mentions.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I stand guided. Nasema, Mheshimiwa Speaker, kulingana na hali vile ambavyo iko kwa wakati wa sasa, tunaangalia watu wamepotezwa wengi. Leo ukitembea, Mheshimiwa Speaker, Majengo, leo ukitembea Kingorani, leo ukitembea Mji wa Kale, leo ukitembea katika sehemu nyingi za Mombasa, wazazi wanalia watoto wao hawawezi kujua wako wapi, mpaka sasa wamepotezwa kwa sababu ya kutuhumiwa kwa mambo ya ugaidi. Kwa hivyo, Mheshimiwa Speaker, kama alivyosema Mheshimiwa Tongoyo, mambo haya yasiangalie dini wala rangi. Gaidi ni gaidi. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kuunga mkono mswada huu, kwa sababu mswada huu una mambo mazuri ndani yake, lakini tukiwa viongozi, hasa mimi leo ni siku yangu nzuri sana kwa sababu nimetoa sauti nikiwa mbunge wa Jomvu. Kuna kijana wa kutoka Jomvu alipotezwa msikiti wa Musa pale, mpaka leo hajaonekana, Mheshimiwa Spika. Leo familia yake, kina Rehema Karimu na wengine, wakikaa wakituangalia, wanajua kweli kwa hali hili tumejaribu tulizungumze. Kwa hivyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeshukuru msaada huu, tunaunga mkono. Na Mheshimiwa Owen, kama alivyosema Mama Zamzam, hatuwezi kutofautisha, na Zamzam akazungumza akasema mtu aweza kupiga risasi. Nitakutetea wakati wote bwana Mheshimiwa Owen, usiweze kupigwa risasi. Na kama mtu
1 minute of your time was taken during the point of order. Do you want it or you are done? Yes, so give him 2 minutes to conclude his...
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Ndipo sababu wewe mwenyewe binafsi ulipokwenda Uganda ukizungumza kuhusu hutaki mambo ya ushoga kwa sababu wale wanaofanya mambo yale ni uhalifu. Museveni akasema maneno matatu: akipata una recruit anakuua. Kwa hivyo ile kuua ya Museveni ile si katika mambo ya ugaidi, ile katika kurekebisha maneno mazuri ambayo amesema na Mheshimiwa Kaluma. Kwa hivyo hivi sasa Mheshimiwa Kaluma nataka kuzungumza kumalizia kusema vile Mama Zamzam alikuwa amesema, sisi tutamchunga ndugu yetu Owen Baya. Mtu yoyote yule ambaye akimgusa Owen Baya ajue amegusa live wire, na yoyote yule ambaye atamnyoshea kidole Mheshimiwa Owen Baya ajue kama amegusa live wire. Na kijana mwepesi Garange Dima Biori mzee Fula Ngenge, takuwa niko hapo mimi kumwangalia Owen Baya. Asante sana kwa hayo, naunga mkono Mheshimiwa Spika mambo haya.
Honorable Buddy, I lost a very good friend from your constituency. His name was called Shahid Pervez Bat. I thought you would mention, but you forgot. You know the circumstances under which the former proprietor of Modern Coast Express also disappeared. The Honorable Indikiri Mwami.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to
congratulate the committee led by my friend Honorable Chepkonga for bringing this item of registration concerning the rectification of the Security Council resolution on matters to do with terrorism. Mr. Speaker, terrorism has no boundaries. It has no color, it has no religion, it has no age, it has no caste. It is a face of the mere fact is terrorism. And terrorism is bad in whatever form it is. Kenya has suffered because of terrorism. The unfortunate thing is that terrorism emerged from certain parts of this world. But as it continues, Mr. Speaker, terrorism has taken different faces. Mr. Speaker, this resolution is coming in the right time because Kenya is now required to take some responsibilities on how to deal with terrorism without over-relying on other countries who are signatories to the convention. Mr. Speaker, this legislation is proposing a committee, which to me I think is one of the things that has been lacking in matters of dealing with terrorism. Mr. Speaker, the new face of terrorism is that it has institutions, it has persons, it has networks, it has cartels, it is even application of various technologies, cyber terrorism. By domesticating the matters to deal with terrorism, Kenya will be basically now homegrown in terms of its approach to dealing with the menace of terrorism. Mr. Speaker, we should not wait any more further because I think the more we lapse time in matters of dealing with terrorism, the more we are giving freedom to our terrorists to operate in our states. Mr. Speaker, we need to be proactive. We need to be proactive all the times. It will call upon physical confrontation of terrorism. It will require network. It will require putting up a lot of technology. It will require various research and other activities that are geared towards addressing this menace. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, will say that this has come the right time, and I argue members that we need to vote the ratification so that we can domesticate our operations in terms of dealing with terrorism. Mr. Speaker, if we rectify this resolution, it will mean that we will be able to share a lot of information with other parts of the world because we are not alone. We will be giving what is actually happening in terms of terrorism in our country. Mr. Speaker, it will be very easy even to seek for financial support and expertise from the other members. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very important that as members, we pass this requirement through the statutory address, which have been forwarded and brought forth by this committee. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support the ratification and urge the members, please, let's pass so that we can be part of this convention. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP for Mandera West, the Honorable Badan Aji.
The third one, yes. Ata Izimiki. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also stand to support this regulation. Mr. Speaker, we Kenyans are a very high-risk terrorist area by virtue of where we are situated and by virtue of some of the activities that our country has undertaken in trying to combat with terrorism. The area where I come from is actually part of that area. Part of the roads have already been taken over by terrorists. There are roads that used to be used by everybody, and currently even the military cannot use it because of terrorists. And therefore, ratifying this convention and adopting it is very important, because we shall join hands with the rest of the world to come with ways and means of combating terrorism. Terrorism does not have any face. They do not have any tribe or any clan or any color or any religion. Some of the terrorists, some of the anti-terrorist actions also becomes terrorist action. A good example is that when there are terrorists are reported somewhere, our forces who are supposed to go and combat the terrorists, they go there and become terrorists themselves. In other words, they go and terrorize or even kill or maim people whom they meet in those areas. The terrorists attack and disappear. They go to the manyatas, start killing, start arresting and maiming all whom they see around there. I may call such persons or such institutions what I call licensed bandits or licensed terrorists. Just because they are licensed, they are part of the system that are supposed to fight terrorism, that should not give them a license to go and become terrorists themselves. So when we are combating terrorists and we go and become terrorists ourselves, then we are going to support terrorists. People who are innocent and who have been maybe subjected to a lot of difficulties or even death just because terrorists passed by their area or terrorists has attacked their area, then they become radicalized. They become radicalized, and that is why we are not able to eradicate terrorists out of our midst. So by supporting or ratifying these conventions and coming up with rules and regulations that are globally acceptable, so that the term terrorism itself is well defined in the regulation, so that we know who is a terrorist and whom we can classify as not terrorist. What is happening in Middle East today? Yeah, some of the internationally high-level countries, they say that is not terrorism, just because they are involved themselves. I can say here without fear that some of the countries, I don't have to mention countries, but some of the countries who are world watchdogs are becoming terrorists themselves in the name of trying to fight terrorism. That should not be accepted. And hence, the laws should define what terrorists are, because anybody who comes out of the blues, terrorize other human beings, kill them for not any apparent reason, unlawfully, then that person or that nation or that community should be treated as terrorists. With these few remarks, I support. Thank you.
The Honorable Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the chance you've given me so that I can also add my voice to the regulations on terrorism. Mr. Speaker, I want to say terrorism and corruption are probably the two greatest challenges to this country. and we need to tackle them. The bringing on board of international conventions is a good thing. But Mr. Speaker, it is not enough just to domesticate international treaties and international laws. We must go one step further to ensure that they are implemented. I'm saying so, Mr. Speaker, because the Maputo Declaration, in which Kenya is a signatory, adopted that in each and every nation's budget, 10% must be dedicated to agriculture. And I've been, in this House, Mr. Speaker, I've been looking at the budgets allocated to agriculture, and they are hardly 1%, hardly 2%, Mr. Speaker. That convention recognizes, Mr. Speaker, that if you invest a shilling in agriculture, you are changing the GDP 9 times. If the budget of agriculture goes 10%, then the GDP of this country will rise probably by a huge, huge margin. Mr. Speaker, as I support, I want to conclude by saying Kenya is a nation state. And much as Kenya is a nation state, it's also a body of nations in the entire world. It's part of mankind, and it must do its role just like other nations are doing the same. Mr. Speaker, we've suffered because of terrorism, and we want to be supported by other nations in the fight against this crime. We want to be supported by techniques, we want to be supported by finances, we want to be supported by strategies, and domestication of these regulations, Mr. Speaker, will give Kenya the necessary support it seeks from other nations. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Honorable Joseph Kangara, MP for Lari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the adoption of the report on the prevention of terrorism by the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Mr. Speaker, we all know that terrorism is a worldwide problem, is a global problem. And being a global problem, Mr. Speaker, it means that it needs to be tackled globally, that is by nations coming together under the United Nations so that they can be able to have a common solution to trying to suppress and in the long run be able to eliminate the issue of terrorism in the world. We have seen terrorists worldwide bombing and maiming people and killing very innocent people. And Kenya is not an exception, has not been left behind. We are aware we have had bombings since 1998, and we have IEDs all over the country, especially in the northern parts of this country, where innocent Kenyans have been killed through acts of terrorism. And in that case, Mr. Speaker, it is my take that as a country we need to join other countries under the United Nations so that we can be able to bring this problem to an end. This country has been affected, as we are aware, with the radicalization of our youths. Simply because they are unemployed, they are being taken into terrorism. And in that case, we need to come up with a problem of even dealing with the financiers of terrorists. Because when they are doing the radicalization, of course, taking advantage of the lack of jobs in the country, it means that our youth are being probably enticed through using some money. So as we tackle the issue of terrorism, let us also deal with the financiers of the same so that we can be able to bring about peace in this world. So I'm happy to join other members and urge members that indeed we adopt this report so that as a nation we are able to move together with the rest of the world and be able to curb terrorism, which has brought so many suffering or so much suffering to the people of Kenya. With the few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Honorable Paul Kaindi Katana.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Ninaunga mkono ripoti ambayo imetolewa na kamati ya usalama. Bwana Spika, hakuna dini, tuwe wa Kristo au Waislamu wanaunga mkono ugaidi. Gaidi hana sura, hana rangi, hana kabila. Gaidi ni gaidi. Bwana Spika, Kenya imeathirika mahali pakubwa kwa mambo ya ugaidi. Hivi tunavyozungumza, ndugu zetu wa Lamu wanaendelea kuumia kwa mambo ya ugaidi. Bwana Spika, lazima kama taifa ama viongozi ni tutafute chanzo au kiini ni kwa nini vijana wetu wanajiunga na makundi ya kigaidi. Tukipata kiini, ndio hata tukitunga sheria zitaweza kutumika ili kudhibiti vijana wetu wasijiingize katika makundi ya kigaidi. Swala nyeti, Bwana Spika, ni kwamba uhaba wa kazi hapa nchini umechangia pakubwa vijana wengi kujiingiza katika makundi ya kigaidi kwa sababu wanashawishiwa na pesa. Tunapoendelea kuunga mkono mataifa mengine ili kupigana na ugaidi, ni lazima pia sisi kama taifa kupitia vitengo vyetu vya usalama na kiujasusi waweze kutambua wale watu ambao wanafadhili makundi ya kigaidi hapa nchini. Kwa sababu tuko na kitengo cha ujasusi, ni lazima waangalie hawa watu wanatoa pesa zao wapi na zinaingia hapa nchini namna gani. Kwa sababu bila hivyo, hata tukitunga sheria ama kuunga miswada ambayo inakuja hapa au kurekebisha, hatutakuwa na suluhu ya ugaidi. Jambo jingine, Bwana Spika, wale polisi ambao wametwikwa na jukumu la kuzuia ugaidi wasigeuke wao wenyewe kuwa magaidi. Kwa sababu ni lazima watumie hekima, wafanye uchunguzi thabiti kabla mtu hajashikwa au hajapigwa risasi. Mambo ya kudhania, na nyinyi ndio mmetwikwa jukumu la uchunguzi ili muweze kujua huyu ni mhalifu au si mhalifu. Kwa sababu ukisema mimi ni mhalifu na hujanichunguza ukajua menendo yangu ya kihalifu iko namna gani au ninahusiana na kina nani, unishike unipeleke kotini. Ndio sababu watu wengi wamepelekwa kotini na wameweza kuregeshwa ama wamepatikana hawana hatia kwa sababu ya uchunguzi duni. So tunasema hali kama tunaunga mkono namna hiyo, Bwana Spika, ni lazima tutafute wale ambao wanahusika na kushawishi vijana wetu wajiingize katika makundi ya kigaidi. Na nimetangulia kusema swala nyeti ni kwamba uhaba wa kazi umechangia pakubwa. Kwa hivyo tutunge sheria za kudhibiti, lakini la muhimu ni lazima tutafute mbinu mbadala ya kuhakikisha kwamba vijana wetu wana ajira na wanaweza kujiingiza katika makundi ya kutafuta mapato yao ya kiuchumi na si uhalifu. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia muda kuchangia, na ninaunga mkono ripoti hiyo. Asante.
Honorable Daud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll just be short. Mr. Speaker, I support this prevention of terrorism. But Mr. Speaker, we should not balkanize a whole community or put a whole community that because you have a Muslim name that you are a terrorist. A terrorist does not have any religion or color or creed. Mr. Speaker, we need to put that aside, and people need to understand being a Muslim does not mean you are a terrorist, because wherever you go, if you have a Muslim name, you are treated differently in many of these countries. And Mr. Speaker, when we do that, we encourage radicalization like what my colleague has said from Mandera, and that is what makes everything bad. Mr. Speaker, I just want to take his attention of the chairman to the visa issue on 5, restriction on travel visas. But Mr. Speaker, Kenya has waived visas from many countries. So this section will not even work, because if it's there, it will not work. But Mr. Speaker, with those, I don't want to say more than that, and I want to say we should not be targeted as Muslims. in this fight for terrorism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, this particular motion will be debated further. And I'm very grateful for the interest demonstrated. We are a country which has suffered the brunt of terrorism. Your speaker here has lost very many relatives out of these attacks, either in the forces or the other way, or even as civilians. I wanted to request members to take time, read the report, so that when we come back to deliberate on it, whether in the afternoon or in any other day, we can also talk to the regulations themselves, because it does appear to me that we are very passionate about the subject matter. Honorable members, at the time being 1:00 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Thursday, the 7th day of December 2023, at 2:30 p.m.